suddenly something's changed and they've just gotten rabid and nasty and angry. And my question to them is, if your guy is doing so good and he's so ahead in the polls and you're so confident that he's going to win, why is there this morning to night obsession with Ron DeSantis coming from Trump and coming from his surrogates? And I think a lot of it is in this Politico story here, where we're seeing that a lot of these polls that they're putting out do not fit the RNC's criteria for credibility. They don't have enough people in them. It was something going on with this. Plus, I'm wondering if Trump is going to set up a spot in Mar-a-Lago for his buddy Lindsey Graham there. I mean, he brings out Lindsey Graham, the worst neocon rhino warmonger, who said that every single cent we sent to Ukraine was the best investment we've ever made. That's who he brings up on stage after his people are attacking Ron DeSantis and claiming that he's controlled by rhino globalists. It's just becoming laughable.
Chief, I mean, I'm going to go to DC Drainer in a second, but just because you heard that, I mean, he's asked you a question. What's your answer?
So I mean, a couple of points. I mean, in terms of the whole calling out, thing during the 2021. I mean, people on the Trump side, I'm sure, were for DeSantis at a certain point, but as governor, and just like I'm sure that Chris at some point was a Trump fan, he switched over sides. People are allowed to switch sides in that sense, because I'm guessing that he was a MAGA supporter at some point. So, I mean, in terms of myself, I mean, I thought DeSantis was a person that was a good governor. However, I think that the person who should be for president should be Donald J. Trump. So it's kind of a point there to be made. And the second thing, also the polls. I mean, you look at all the polls, the RCP, you look at all of them, you see that Trump is maintaining his lead while Vivek is actually climbing up in the polls and things like that. If you have a poll where it's 55% to 20%, at this point, it's kind of like, okay, how much money is a candidate going to waste and burn? And we had this murmur or this rumor about this post-announcement bump didn't happen. And then we have people saying, well, go wait till the debate to happen. We're getting all these words and things like that, when in reality, Trump is a favorite for the GOP nomination. And even talking about a DeSantis versus Biden thing is hypothetical, because we have to get through Trump first. And as of right now, the polls are very strong for Trump to win. At this point, I mean, I'm not even sure if he'll even want to do the debates, or if he even has to. It's pretty clear cut. And you can look at Iowa, you can look at New Hampshire and things like that, and you'll see that Trump is in the lead for pretty much every single poll. I mean, I'm not sure if there's a certain poll that he's referring to that is not meeting RNC standards, but the vast majority in the RCP clearly shows that he's up in the in the GOP. I'll remember to talk about. I'll finish it up with this. At the end of the day, right now I'm looking towards Biden, and Biden is the person we got to take down as the Democrat nominee, which will be, I guess, inevitable inevitable Democrat nominee for president on their side. Biden won't be that person. So, I mean, we got to deal with DeSantis. I mean, he's at 20% or something like that in most of the polls. Trump's at 50% or above in most of the polls. So I'm not really considering him much of a threat.
Chief, quick question. So we're going to go into the polls. Yeah, there has been a big. I expected DeSantis' polling to be a lot better, but it's not. But in terms of what you said, I mean, on Twitter, there's been a lot of, as what Chris calls as surrogates, but there's been a lot of back and forth by Trump's people and DeSantis' people. I saw some stuff between Luma and is it Max Nordau?
Yeah.
I mean, what's been going on? What has been happening?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of Twitter stuff going on with these DeSantis people, to be quite frank. I mean, we've all heard about things like that. At the end of the day, this is an election. Elections, are not going to be peaceful little things. Most times elections are extremely contentious, and a lot of times there's a lot of things like that. The thing about the whole Max Nordau situation is pretty funny, because, I mean, I listened to the audio, and I thought it was pretty close. I mean, I'm not going to,
What do you mean? Wait. A lot of people don't know what you're talking about. Do you want to explain what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's this. Okay, so basically, this Max Nordau account, this DeSantis account, anon account on Twitter, and then Laura Loomer made a big post saying that this person was Brian Griffin and all of that. And at the end of the day, is this going to really matter in the general election? I think in general, I'm focusing more so on why.
So
Yeah.
who's just for the
Oh
audience?
yeah,
Who
sorry,
is Brian?
clarify that. Yeah. So I mean, Brian Griffin is DeSantis' press secretary, and the audio that I heard where when they're talking about where they're introducing the person on space, and there's a clip of him being introduced on a separate tape shows it's very similar. I thought it was, at least, and you can listen to it and judge for yourself. But there's been a lot of stuff too. Community notes has been a thing as well. I think in general, it's good to have a natural debate on things, and having conflict on Twitter, is not going to end the GOP or anything like that. There's always going to be some sort of disagreement with people on Twitter. I think there's good value in airing this out and having a nice back and forth. Twitter is
the reason the Max Nordau stuff is important is because if this Max guy, who could be Brian Griffin, is posting campaign ads from this anonymous Twitter account within the parameters of the official government office of Ron DeSantis, then that could have tremendous legal implications and possibly criminal. So that's why it's a big thing. That's why we're making a big scene out of it. You've got this account that constantly shills for Ron DeSantis, and the voices on the Twitter spaces sound identical to the press secretary of Ron DeSantis. So that's why it's very important. Also, you talk about what's going on between the both sides of the camps. 2016 was like this, guys. The primaries were nasty. They were brutal. At the end of it, Trump won. We came back. We came together as a party, and we did great for 4 years. This is nothing new. We need to stop acting like it's the end of the world. Mud gets slung where it's due. And we're slinging a lot of mud on Ron because there's a lot of problems within his campaign. The fact that the resign to run thing was, altered right in time for him to run, and he was traveling around on Florida's dime to go campaign on this fake book tour. You've got legislation that's passing through, landmark legislation in Florida, the constitutional carry and the abortion bills. Why did he wait to pass those when he decided to run for president? Did he not care about babies' lives being slaughtered more than his, benefits from running for office and being able to campaign off of that? Did he not care about people's constitutional right to carry more than he cared about his own campaign? These are the problems that we're pointing out. And honestly, I hate to even join spaces like this because Trump is at 60% practically. Why are we even talking about Ron DeSantis? I mean, I think it's more funny to talk about Chris Christie falling asleep with his gut out on a plane than we talk about Ron DeSantis. His campaign is a joke, and we're seeing that every day.
Wait, Mario, can I? So, I mean, people have been talking about.
Hey, everybody.
Sorry, Mike. But people have been, Max, you've been the talk of the Twitter town. People have been saying that you are Brian. Are you Brian?
No, I'm not. I mean, there's some serious coping around about Governor DeSantis's massive grassroots support. Before the 2022 election, there was so much support for DeSantis, and we saw that in the successful re-election campaign. Not a lot of people can say that they've won re-election, but Governor DeSantis, in fact, can say he did. So, there's a lot of coping because, if you don't believe election results, and if you don't believe like the 20-point victory happened, like I can see why you would say, oh yeah, there's no grassroots support for this guy. I'm just a normal person. I tweet in my spare time. I talk on spaces. You can have the side-by-side voices. I guess in that 2-second clip, we sound similar, but, if you listen to us for longer than that 2-second clip, it's pretty clear we're different people. And, that's the long and short of it. And I think Kristen is a big fat liar. I think Chief Trumpster is a liar. Like Loomer might be crazy enough to actually believe it, but these two guys, like they don't really believe it. They're just trying to troll the DeSantis campaign, trying to waste the DeSantis campaign's time. I'm just a normal guy, and like there's a lot of people who feel strongly about stuff. And so my question to Chief Trumpster is, so how much is the Trump campaign paying you?
$0. How much are they paying you? Anything?
The Trump campaign. They would hire me.
The DeSantis campaign, actually. DeSantis campaign. Are they paying you anything?
You talk about cope. Honestly, I could really care less if you are Brian or not. I think if you are, then it is a major legal implication. But if you're not, you're talking about coping. I think the real coping was done when Ron DeSantis was making campaign ads in 2019, saying that he reads book stories to his child at night with Trump's face on them.
Why was
chilling.
Ron
That was
DeSantis making
chilling.
campaign
It
ads
was
in 2019?
it was chilling. Hold on, Max. It was chilling when he was on his knees begging Trump, giving him anything he wanted to get that endorsement to put him over the finish line. And now he trashes Trump because he rides coattails until it's not politically expedient for him anymore.
Do you think it was inappropriate when Mr. Trump stabbed Ron DeSantis in the back 3 days before the midterm election? Yes.
No, he should have done it twice.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, this whole loyalty thing, like, again, like, nobody actually believes this, and nobody actually believes the thing about the resign to run. Like, nobody cares. You know, nobody cares that Tim Scott is the sitting senator. There were so many people, like, you don't care about any of this
I care about
stuff,
the fact
you
that
know.
Pushaw is a foreign agent.
You don't care. No, you're lying. You don't care about that either.
You look at her close ties.
No, you don't care. Like, you don't care. Like, Susie Wiles is a registered foreign agent for China. Like, you don't care about that. Roger Stone was a foreign agent. You don't care about that. Like, these are all just talking. These are just throwing crap against the wall that you don't actually care
You got to
about.
have public discourse, civil discourse. All right. Christina worked very closely with the Ukrainian government, and now she's working on a major, well, I wouldn't say major, but a presidential campaign. And that's quite concerning to me, given the fact that.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
No, it isn't. It's not concerning to you at all. It's not. You're lying.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Let me
again,
just say you're lying and say you're wrong,
is,
and yeah, then we're good. Right?
I mean, if
you are lying. Like, you're just. I mean, this is the thing. Like, Groypers have a specific nihilistic, dishonest point of view, and it's being shown here.
If you talk about.
What? Sorry, Max, just finish your point and then see if you can ask your question. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that Groypers have a specific dishonest style, like, where they get mad about things that they claim to support, and they support things they can claim to get mad about. And like, and again, like, Susie Wiles was a lobbyist for, like, Ukraine and China, and like all these things that they claim to oppose. She's like she's not a campaign manager. She's a very senior advisor to Mr. Trump. And they don't care. These people don't care. Like, there's no actual concern about this. They just like Trump, or I don't know about Trump. They like this image of Trump because it allows them to express their inner whatever. Like, there's the vast majority of people like Trump for like what he actually does, but then like the Groyper types, they just see it as a way to act out their own whatever.
Okay, so Max, can I ask you a genuine question, Max? Let me ask you something. What do you think, and this is genuine, seriously, what do you think about the kind of precedents and the way that the optics, I guess we should say, for Ron DeSantis to travel to Israel to sign a bill that really restricts, you know, sets a really dangerous precedence when you have a crime that's committed, and if it's found out that it was fueled by hate at all, that's a 5-year minimum and a felony charge. Don't you think that's a little weird? Don't you think these things that he's doing are a little weird and suspect?
You said you had a genuine question. Are you going to ask it?
Okay. Well, clearly this guy's not unserious. Brian Griffin.
Yeah. Also,
I have a serious question.
Well, hold on. Well, I got
1 second, guys.
Can I ask a question? I was supposed to ask me a question.
Chief, I'll come to you in a second. Let Mike jump in because he's not a chance to, and then I will go to you.
Yeah, so, there's kind of something that overhangs all of this that I wish there was a little bit more deliberation and consensus around. One of the things that differentiates this election from any other election in American history, and especially the past, 2016, 2020, is the Trump-DeSantis schism and will play out amongst 4 indictments over Trump's head. Currently, I think Trump is now facing something like 538 years when you add up the New York City and the recent DOJ one. There's going to be 2 more indictments that are going to happen between now and the nomination period. So Trump is probably going to be under indictment in 4 separate cases with 1,000 years of prison hanging over his head. And so we're sort of talking about this, like, that is obviously going to change the strategic map. And I feel like everything that we're talking about right now is going to be sort of null until that legal overhang is cleared. And I'm curious sort of what the various, like, Trump and DeSantis folks are envisioning for what's going to happen when all 4 indictments drop and there's 1,000 years over Trump's head, and his, what is DeSantis going to do in response to that? I mean, can someone update the group maybe on what his latest remarks are in response to that? Why not? He's going to win, and if Trump wants to be pardoned, he should want DeSantis in there. And now Susie Wiles is talking to Jack Smith. Susie Wiles is Trump's main gatekeeper. She's the one you have to get through in order to get endorsements. She's taken millions of dollars from Chinese companies like Yealink, Hikvision, and Alibaba that make things to spy on Americans. She is working with with a Chinese lobbying firm to do these things. And these hypocrites in the Trump campaign are going to go after Christina Pushaw. Are you kidding me? They're going to talk about disloyalty when Susie Wiles is talking to Jack Smith. What about her disloyalty? And I got really something to say to you, DC Drano, Rogan O'Hanley, Hollywood lawyer turned Trump influencer or whatever. How do you get off calling Thomas Massie a rhino? And then you literally the most conservative guy in Congress, and then who had the guts to stand up to Trump's CARES Act. And then you turn around and you got no problem with Trump having his rallies opened up by warmonger Lindsey Graham, who wants to send every last dime to the Ukraine. You're a hypocrite, Rogan.
Let DC Drano jump in there. Go ahead, DC.
It's always nice to have a conversation with the mentally stable Chris Nelson. I call out Massie and Lindsey Graham pretty equally. I think they're both terrible. And to be clear, I call Massie uniparty, not a rhino. I think he's an asset of the intelligence community. He worked for them. He supports them. He voted to protect Adam Schiff. It was a completely constitutional provision. His case has already been dismissed in court. It was a weak argument. He voted against Trump's wall. He voted to increase the debt ceiling. He voted to certify the fraud on January 6th. We don't need those people on our side. And there's going to be a lot of primary attention on him. He's got a very worthy contender, a lot of big names supporting him. So Massie's going to reap what he sows. Lindsey Graham is far, far worse than Massie. There's a reason Lindsey Graham was just booed for 6 straight minutes in South Carolina, in the rural areas of South Carolina. And that's because of his intervention in Ukraine and pushing for World War III. But
who's
you know,
he
overall,
on stage with? Trump. He's on stage with Trump.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's if you're, I guarantee DeSantis would rather have Lindsey Graham and the South Carolina GOP establishment helping him instead of Trump. But Trump's playing to win. He doesn't like Lindsey Graham. He talks openly, jokes about him, but he's playing the game to win the presidency because that's what's at stake here. But my question for the DeSantis people on here is, you know, we've seen ever since the announcement a steady decline in the polls to the point now where he's a lot closer to Vivek than he is to Trump. And my question, and it's a serious question, when do you think you're going to see a DeSantis poll bump? He just signed, you know, constitutional carry just took effect. He signed all his laws. He announced his campaign. He's put out, you know, a bunch of his policies. We've seen no bump. And at what point do you say, okay, this isn't the year, let's unify the GOP and move forward?
So I think I can answer that question pretty handily here. So
you're being, hold on, let me answer him. You're being dishonest about the wall funding, okay? That wall funding also had amnesty in it, okay? So please, Rogan, don't play this game. You can't come out of nowhere. You really didn't do anything in reopen. And you're all of a sudden this influencer who came from Hollywood, and kind of like a lot of these Trump people, like Carrie Lake, former Democrat, Trump, former Democrat. Now all of a sudden you're the gold standard for who's a rhino or not. Those bills that Massie voted against were unconstitutional or had other spending in them. And you and Luna pulled this little stunt to try to help Trump. Isn't that what you were trying to do?
Okay, before we dig into this, I really want to hit this question at hand because I just spent the weekend listening to DeSantis, Trump, and Nikki Haley, whatever her name is, at a conference 20 feet from them, listening to them. And the discordance with the polls and what also is with on Twitter is really important to actually consider here. So first of all, it's important to note that polls were worthless to everyone on the right up until about 15 minutes ago. And now we're hanging our hats on the pegs of some 400-person national poll that doesn't even meet standards that we all considered to be sacrosanct a couple of years ago. The polls are not yet worth anything. That said, Trump is the clear front runner. Both of those things are true based on the fact that Trump has a very powerful base. That said, the sanctimonious nonsense that I hear from the Trump community about how DeSantis is not allowed to play as dirty as Trump does, that, oh God, it's horrible that there could be people as devoted to DeSantis as there are people devoted to Trump, who, by the way, both have very good reasons for being devoted to their candidate. I've talked to a lot of Trump supporters, great people who love Donald Trump through and through. I've talked to a lot of great DeSantis people who love DeSantis through and through. And the fact that they go at each other on Twitter does not mean that there's some secret campaign finance, shadow campaign violation paid for by secret big Israel oil and pharma. It's not. Maybe they just have candidates that people support. That genuinely happens because this is the age of citizen journalism where people spend time on Twitter and make points. As to whether or not we're going to see a DeSantis poll bump, I would suggest to you that every time I get a call that's asking me to participate in some kind of a poll, and I hear that little whoop that tells you that it's some kind of automated call, I hang up the phone quicker than Hunter Biden forgets his child. I do. I don't participate in polls. None of you in here participate in polls that aren't on Twitter or aren't on the website that you love to go to the most. So if we're going to sit here and pretend that primary polls are somehow the world's best indicator of how a presidential primary candidate is doing, I do not see it in this age where the right trusts someone calling to ask them polling questions as much as you trust the water in Flint, Michigan. So, Dorino, I hope that answers your question. I did want to answer it because I don't like getting a question asked and then brushing past it to just dive into something else. I feel like we could probably spend our time a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, I'll respond quickly, to Chris first. I haven't ever been a Democrat. I've been a Republican since I was a teenager. I don't know where you get that theory. A. B, the reason why you're probably not familiar with me is because I was banned on Twitter for 2 years for talking about election misinformation. Elon brought me back. Been on Instagram for a while, 2.4 million followers there. So I didn't really come out of nowhere. I left an entire Hollywood entertainment lawyer career to go fight for the truth on social media and to support a president who's being backstabbed by every major institution on planet Earth. And as for the reopen, I was very much fighting in the reopens, and kind of proves the point that DeSantis wasn't Mr. Anti-lockdown, because you and I both had to fight for reopens and to get the masks off kids. So, I've been on the ground. I live in West Coast Florida, not Southeast. So that's probably why you didn't see me, but been in this game for a long time. And, the gentleman that just spoke, I don't think you really answered my point. You're talking about polls, but like you agree Trump's ahead in the polls. What events are actually going to give DeSantis a bump? It's not his speeches. It's not his walking in parades on July 4th in different states instead of Florida. Nothing is working. What exactly do you think these trials and further indictments are going to say? Oh my gosh, actually, we'll support DeSantis now.
I don't think so at all.
Trump. So I'm genuinely
curious. I agree with you.
Because here's one thing I'm noticing, and then this is a piece of advice for DeSantis and others, and just the unity of the GOP. I am noticing a deep entrenchment of anti-DeSantis resentment the more he stays in this race. And it's not something I even like, because I always thought of him as potentially for 2028. But I will tell you, anytime I mention that, people get pissed at me. People in the base, they say, I'll never vote for DeSantis again. So it's a legitimate concern that I have, as well as others. This may be ruining DeSantis' 2028 chances. So I'll let others chime in.
It is.
So to answer,
Rogan, I have a question.
Right.
You
are
say
you going to
that
let us back into your club, Rogan? Are you going to let us back into the fold? Do you know how
Rogan,
arrogant
I have a question.
You said that, Rogan.
Chris,
You are
shut up.
an arrogant man.
Suleiman. I muted everyone just so
Yeah,
that we could
so
get one speaker.
just quick question. So Rogan, you say like DeSantis should wait until 2028. Are you committing right now to voting if Trump loses again and then runs again in 2028? Are you committing right now to supporting someone else in the primary, or are you going to say he needs to wait until 2032 then?
I'm not committing to anyone or anything in 2028. I'm
That last part felt like I was at a teachers union like meeting, and we were all fighting over who was going to get to adopt textbooks the next year. And that kind of violence just really speaks to me, sent me back, you know.
It's just like the Broward Teachers Union, man. You've never gone toe to toe with any teachers union people than you haven't with the Broward Teachers Union. Miami's just,
hey, you don't know. Maybe I used to make out with Randy Weingarten in closets. Only I didn't actually. But you know, you don't know. Respect my pronouns.
Well, maybe she's isn't she running the intelligence community now or something? I mean, when I saw that, I just like, wow, because the teachers unions are responsible down here for most of the harassment of citizens online, and you know, dealing with those libs online, it's just like dealing with the Trump people today. You have Laura Loomer tagging the FBI on things. You have people copying and pasting text messages and sending them. You have the nonstop cry bullying from the Trump side, and the now everybody who doesn't support Trump's a rhino. But you know, DC Drano was thanking DeSantis. Oh, him and his buddy Cat Turd thanking DeSantis for keeping things open and everything. Now all of a sudden, DeSantis is the worst rhino, and everybody's a uniparty unless you're Lindsey Graham, and Trump is just trying to expose him, right? Let me tell you, there is a major problem here, and I just want to be real. This is not to go at anybody or anything like this. Trump says he's going to stop this Ukraine stuff. Okay, first of all, you want to talk about polls? There is no poll.
How is he going to stop that, Chris?
There
Tell
is
us how
no
he's going to stop
poll
Ukraine.
no. There's no poll that shows that Trump can ever beat Biden or any Democrat. Putting Trump up is a guaranteed way to loss.
That's a lie.
Guaranteed way. Every poll, all the polls that you guys show.
There are some polls that do show Trump above Biden.
Trump will not win. Not a chance.
You know that's a lie, though, Chris, right? I mean, the polls do show him beating Biden. You know that's a lie. You said that there's no polls at all that show that that Trump can't beat Biden. You know, are you standing by that statement?
They've
really?
all. I've not seen one. If you can show me one poll that shows that Trump is beating Biden or Trump beating Biden in a general election, show me. And let me tell you, Trump also was going around saying, "Oh, we can't have somebody under indictment becoming president," when it was Hillary, but. Now, I guess when it's him, it's okay. And there's this whole thing. I get it. You know, DC Drano, you're an influencer. I guess you make your money with your Instagram following, like Kim Kardashian or whatever. And, you know, you want to keep that whole train going and stuff. And DeSantis is a threat to this. But you were here in Florida. You saw how effectively he governed. You saw he's a conservative. You saw how he got these things done. And now all of a sudden it's, oh, DeSantis is just horrible. The hypocrisy for you guys is
Chris.
Okay, so I put the poll up
Even
here.
Chris,
so I wanted
if
to
I
see
can-
that point real quick.
1 second, Chief. Let Following go first. Following, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a poll from Newsweek from yesterday saying that's headline, Donald Trump holds big lead over Joe Biden in swing states, poll show. So you want to tell me that he can't beat him in a national election? That fortunately, we have a constitutional republic. He doesn't need to win the national vote. He needs to win the swing states. We all know that. It's disingenuous.
Swing states, man. He does not have it in the swing states.
You're telling me, Chris, pull up Newsweek yesterday at 8:00. They said Donald Trump holds big lead over Joe Biden in swing states. So stop with this disingenuous claims that he cannot win, because I don't think that's fair.
I will also.
Chris, if you want to say,
you sound triggered.
Well, you're wrong, though.
No, I'm not at all triggered, because I'm going to tell you something. I'm not someone who feels that passionately that one or the other is the devil. I'm actually very bothered by the fact that there's so much fracturing between the Trump supporters and the DeSantis supporters. I just don't want to hear people making disingenuous claims or gaslighting as to what the reality is. So, and I think both sides are very guilty of gaslighting when they talk about how terrible the other side is. So to the extent I can come in here and point out when either side is really misrepresenting reality,
I think you're half
I'm
right.
happy to
Like,
do that.
you know, there is a side that completely switched, but
the Echelon poll has Trump up over Biden, but the NBC poll, Biden up too. And this is 2024 swing states interactive polls. This is the poll that you guys put under every one of our posts and try to rub in our faces all the time. This is you guys' favorite polls. NBC has Biden over Trump by 2 points. Signal has Biden up by 8. This echelon thing is a weird one. It has Trump up by 7. So you are correct about that. I will admit that, yes, there is this one poll, this may be what you're talking about with Newsweek, that is Trump beating Biden. But every of these other polls, Biden versus DeSantis, NBC poll, DeSantis up 6, Signal, DeSantis up 2, and Echelon, DeSantis up 1. In every one of these polls, you got average Biden beating Trump by 1 percentage point, DeSantis beating Biden by 3 percentage points. Putting
Chris,
Trump is a guaranteed way to lose.
But Chris, it's an empty argument when you talk about what a poll says 18 months before an election. That's ridiculous.
Yes.
No,
it is though.
No. So what I'm saying to you is, when you're 18 months from November 2024, you're trying to say, can he beat Biden? I think that's when we know how poor the polls have been for the last 6 years, and you're trying to say a poll 18 months before. Go ahead.
Colin, the issue with your argument is, which I believe that DeSantis people will be arguing is, isn't that one of the main arguments being used against them, that DeSantis is falling in the polls? So the very same polls where the argument is being made that DeSantis is falling is the same poll that you're now making the argument, and they're making the same argument that wait 18 months.
No,
this is why I think
I'll tell you the difference. I can tell you the difference. First and foremost, primaries are a lot less than 18 months. That's first and foremost. Second of all, when you're talking about polling numbers which are within 10 points of each other, that is very different from polling numbers that are 30 to 40 points away. That's not even the same. You don't need to have an accurate poll. You just need to go outside and look around, and you'll see where the party stands. It's not, if this was a thing where look, right now, if DeSantis was sitting there, he's trailing 25 to 35 to Trump, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? He can make that up. Trump could make some mistakes along the way. He's made tons of mistakes. But when you're sitting here talking about a 30-point lead, it's not, people have correctly asked, where's that DeSantis bump coming from? And no one has an answer for it. The only possible answer is Trump continually stubbing his own foot by meeting with the wrong people or saying things, or having some sort of health issues. That is the best. If someone is a DeSantis fan, that is the best path for him to actually win in the primary. Is some health issues.
Let me go to Phenom.
Take another vaccine. Who knows?
Yeah, let me go to Phenom. So Phenom, question to you. I mean, the polls are looking quite bad for DeSantis. I mean, Vivek's closing hard. Do we think Vivek's going to overtake Turk and be the main challenger?
Well, I mean, absolutely. It's going to end up with Vivek being the distant second to Donald Trump. I mean, we just know that because Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy are the only two populist candidates that come from the private sector. They didn't kind of come up the pipeline on like the taxpayer wanting a career in politics. They both created jobs. They both achieved great success. And they are the only two that have really substantial policy agenda. So if you go to any of the candidates' websites, you're not going to find any substantive policy agenda except for Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, Trump is beating Biden in several polls, the YouGov poll, the Morning Consult poll, and that Echelon poll. So there's plenty of polls where Donald Trump is beating Biden. And remember, Trump is the only candidate, the only Republican candidate since 2004 to win a general. So, a lot of this is just wishful thinking. I understand emotions get high, that happens. But I want to speak for a minute about Lindsey Graham. So we have seen President Trump campaigning and leading for the past 7 years. And never once has his proximity to Lindsey Graham made his policies anything like Lindsey Graham. So we already know that. But what Lindsey Graham does have is a very strong constituent services program in his state. That's why people still like him. A congressman is not just up, or a senator is not just up on the Hill. They also are doing things in their state. He has a very robust ground game there. And you don't want someone like Lindsey Graham with that much political power campaigning or stumping against you. And so people can't have it both ways. Can't complain that like somebody's not endorsing your candidate and then complaining that they are. So you definitely want as many people in the party political power structure of the GOP on your side, helping you win. Donald Trump has that. He's publicly he publicly shows where he doesn't agree with Lindsey Graham, and he's shown that with his policies as well. So,
phenomenology. I love you, but that feels like a double standard, because I'm seeing people criticize DeSantis often for who he does and does not associate with in the party. But
he doesn't have.
Okay, let's just play by the same rules, though. Let's play by the same rules and say that both sides of the primary can utilize party structures in states. The experience that picked bad people in his first term.
Phenom, let him finish, and then I'll go to you. Go ahead, John.
So the 2 points that you made, the first one that I had a significant problem with was that, Trump and Ramaswamy are the only individuals promoting policy. So when I heard Trump speak this last weekend, Trump said he basically provided 28 situations, 2-8, in which he said he would provide executive orders. Then he said he would make school principals directly elected by parents, which is A, not constitutional, and B, not possible. And then C, said he would do some things regarding Congress. And as far as policy proposals, DeSantis, to be fair, has put forward a lot of policy proposals. Whether one of them is a page on his website, in my opinion, is irrelevant, because to answer the earlier question that has been the one no one has answered, is what does DeSantis need to do a bump in the polls, or to do a bump in general? I would say that DeSantis' plan for action to get elected, A, and B, to govern, are better than Trump's. Right now, Trump has spent less time talking about his plan for beating Biden. How are we going to not have a steal this time around? And then number two, what he's going to do in office. I have heard very little of that in the specific. I'm just saying for me. And DeSantis has done more, but it hasn't gotten out to people. So to answer your question, that's kind of my issue with that kind of a portrayal.
But that's inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean,
Phenom, one second, guys. I'm just going to go to Phenom, but just before you do Phenom, guys, on the bottom right-hand side is the comment section. There is a lively debate about who has the better chance of winning this. I mean, is the polls really bad for DeSantis? Do you think Vivek's going to catch him up? Do you think DeSantis will catch Trump? Let us know in the comments, and any questions you have, I can put to the audio, to the speakers as well. So please, bottom right hand side, put your comments in. Fina, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure. So President Trump's policy agenda is called Agenda 47. It is robust, the most comprehensive policy agenda you will see. We've seen in our lifetime. If you go to Donald J. Trump,
I mean, I'm looking at a Heritage 45 2025 agenda.
I don't think people can hear me.
One second, Tony. Let Phenom finish.
So if you go to donaldjtrump.com/Agenda 47 on the main page, you'll see more than 32 videos of specific policies, every aspect of domestic policy, education, immigration, the border, drugs, manufacturing, energy policy, monetary policy. It is absolutely so comprehensive. Nobody can beat it. It's really not necessary to go forward with this primary, but here we are. It was dead in the water when it began with. The people spoke in 2016. We spoke in 2020. Everyone knows of the maladministration that happened in the 2020 election. There are boots on the ground in every county fighting this, and but the policies speak for themselves. There's no one that has the answer to that. There just is no one else.
I mean, I do. I have the answer to that. The answer is that there are other candidates with policy prescriptions, and I have seen other candidates' policy prescriptions. And to say that no one else but Trump has any right to the primary, to say that no one else but Trump has any policy plans, is disingenuous.
She also doesn't
you can say you prefer.
She also doesn't believe. I mean, more to the point. I mean, this is the kind of scammy behavior we've seen. Like, she doesn't believe it. She's interviewing Vivek Ramaswamy tonight. Like, why is she promoting a contested primary? This, and then the same. So, I mean, the same thing. Like the Paul
because
Ryan,
he's going to be the distant second to Trump.
Yeah, whatever.
That's
so
why.
so like
that's why
Lindsey Graham is an important advisor and a campaign surrogate for Mr. Trump, and like he's by his side all the time. Trump has openly admitted that he hires his friends because Lindsey Graham kisses his ass. Like, that's a direct quote. And in contrast, like DeSantis hasn't met with Rove, Ryan, or Jeb Bush in years. And yet people people will spam that. Okay, Loomer. So people,
there's a video of it. There's a video of it on Fox News where I think it's Mark Simone. I'll send it to Mario and I'll post it for you. I posted it a few months ago when DeSantis was on.
Okay, Loomer, I'm talking. So there's a video. So there's a video of Mark Simone.
Lying, so I'll post it. Okay.
There's a video. Yeah, there's a video of Mark Simone like saying that the Bushes are running the DeSantis campaign. But here's the thing about Mark Simone. He's kind of Loomer-esque in that he makes stuff up and doesn't really provide any evidence and really humiliates himself. and people keep spamming that same clip. It's like, okay, but like they still don't associate. There is no association. You know who does have an association? Trump and Graham, Trump and McDaniel, Trump and McCarthy. Like all these people. I mean, I'll say this about like Rogan. I'll say this about Loomer. You provide really good arguments about like how there's a lot of bad, corrupt people in the Republican Party. I just wish you would make the connection and say all those people were put into place by Mr. Trump. So
we have, but you don't like looking at the stuff that I put out. I ran national TV ads against Ronna Romney, and if you read my expose on the California GOP that has taken the internet by storm today, I directly hammered the fact that President Trump endorsed McCarthy and said that it's probably one of the worst decisions he ever made. So you're incorrect in saying that we don't ever criticize President Trump for people that he supported.
You do, but you're always like, I mean, I made fun of you for this, and it was very funny that I did this. I looked up all the time, and you said, I love Trump, but, and then you like criticized like extremely important decisions that he made. Because this is
because I do love him, but one of the reasons why I think people even like yourself are now some of them are on the DeSantis train is because, and I'm not saying that people don't have a right to feel this way. Some people are very frustrated by the personnel and HR decisions, and I love President Trump, but I'm going to be so persistent. I'm so dedicated to get in there and help with these personnel decisions eventually someday. I thought it was going to happen a couple months ago when I thought I was going to be hired, when Trump wanted to hire me. But, if you truly love somebody, you have to stick with them and help make them better. And I do believe that if Donald Trump just had, not all of his staff are bad, but if he had better people around him, he would be unstoppable. And then some people will say, oh, well, then that's just another reason not to support him. Well, all the people that were terrible in Trump's administration have gone to work for Ron DeSantis. So why would I want to support Ron DeSantis, even if there are valid claims against some of President Trump's staffers? Some of the worst of the former staffers are now working as sloppy seconds for Ron DeSantis. So
Ron DeSantis, Laura, was the one who smoked out Susie Wiles. What do you think about this? You call out Christina Pushaw for foreign agent all the time. When you got this woman, Susie Wiles, we all know who she is. She looks like Mrs. Peacock from Clue. She kind of also looks like that chick, Linda Tripp, that was recording Bill Clinton. I wouldn't
What are her looks have anything to do with it?
She has connections. She works for a Chinese lobbying firm that makes things that spy on Americans. Yes, she does.
She worked with a firm that has multiple clients, but she herself never represented any
multiple clients that are tied to the CCP with companies like Yealink, Kickfish, and Alibaba.
She doesn't control.
Hypocritical of you to call out Pushaw
because Pushaw herself directly worked for a foreign client, whereas Susie herself only had American clients.
So have you seen, respectfully?
It's not her firm. It's not her firm. It's not her firm.
Respectfully. Regarding the Pushaw thing, I have to ask, have we actually seen her suggesting, like, did she praise Mike Pence going abroad to Ukraine?
Yes.
If she's such a pro-Ukrainian official, we've seen her praising Ukraine and saying the U.S. should be giving them the blank check. Is that true?
Zelensky, yes.
Do you have, congratulating Zelensky and saying we need to give Ukraine a blank check are not two of the same thing.
And let's remember the letter that Ron DeSantis and Tom Cotton and Adam Kinzinger wrote to John Kerry in the Obama administration wanting the Maidan coup to happen.
That letter doesn't mention the Maidan coup.
That's exactly what it was about.
You're scamming people again.
Please answer the question that I asked. Answer the question. Have we a piece of audio that showcases anyone in the DeSantis campaign? And I'm asking honestly, seriously, please post a link that shows the DeSantis campaign openly saying, give him a blank check. Because I remember from my media coverage and all of the feeds that I'm responsible for, that he was criticized heavily by holier than thou establishment GOP like Mike Pence and Nikki Haley, because he says that, maybe we shouldn't be giving a ton of money to Ukraine because of the accountability issues.
Same tactic that the Bushes did. They say, well, we won't fund it unless there's a clear objective.
So even if he denies it, you're still not going to be okay with it then?
And
he sent the Florida National Guard to Ukraine.
No, he didn't.
He
That's
allowed
not how
the
it works.
Yes, he did. The
No,
Florida
that's not
National
You
Guard.
have the order? You can show me the order from the governor's office? You have the order?
It's the same.
You have the piece of paper that someone has to do for the National Guard.
You can see that the Florida
Loomer,
National
that's not
Guard
how the
went
National
to
Guard
Ukraine to
works.
train.
You look it up,
Doesn't
smart
say
ass. Show me the
abroad.
paper. The burden of
This
proof is on you.
all they can do is ad hominem and insult.
It's not an ad
It's
hominem. I'm asking you
It's
to
so
prove your
embarrassing.
sources.
You've got Laura and Heather
Cite
and you
your
and Trump up
sources.
here who can
I'm
discuss
happy
Laura
to
is
say-
not a source.
I'm
and
happy to
Show
I know that
me
can
the
discuss
letter from the
actual
governor.
Hey,
Tony,
can
right.
I suggest something? Can I suggest something? Instead of fixating on like this incident that happened here or there, can we just like talk about policies that we should be supporting, and that if we see something like this, we would not tolerate from our candidates? Like,
I'm
Well,
not sure
if you
what
want to
happened.
talk about policies and you want to talk about the kind of successes DeSantis had, all you got to do is go on his Twitter and you see every single thing. He comes in, he's going to do tax relief in a budget. He gives us $2.7 billion in tax relief. He does the illegal immigration crackdown, puts out the driver's licenses of people that are illegal from out of state. He does the penalties for kids that go into adult live performances, death penalty for child rapists. Are we going to talk about Ali Alexander? Are we going to talk about these groping allegations against Gavin Wax? Of course, he was just following
See,
Trump.
you just always bring up some sort of ad hominem. The fact is that MAGA supported him
These are facts.
for governor, but we never had vetted him to be president. We weren't looking at him to be president. And to be the governor in a bright red legislature is nothing like working with the Congress, with the Senate, working with all the agencies.
How do you think we got that bright red legislature?
Yeah, she talks like
Trump.
I mean, this is
Trump.
just like
Trump is
like
the one
it,
that did
Where
it.
is
it makes
this?
no
Trump,
sense. You know,
MAGA did it.
it's
MAGA
something
did
that
it.
randomly
Well,
happens.
I have
Not
the
Florida.
source. I have the source. I'm happy to send it regarding the legislation that was proposed by Adam Kinzinger in 2014 that Ron DeSantis voted in favor of, that would have sent $68 million in aid to Ukraine. And
Wait a minute.
sanctions
Does
on
this
Russia.
include the National Guard?
Does this include
That's separate.
Trump bragging that
I'm going line by line. So before you jump down my throat, let me send the sources for all of this, because your tactic is to like attack us and say that we make stuff up, and then as soon as we provide sources, then you say, "Oh, well, that's not good enough," when we're going line by line. So let me do each one.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, like Trump bragged about all the weapons that he sent to Ukraine, and I don't think there was anything wrong with that. But a lot of really dishonest people like just kind of pretend it doesn't exist or say it doesn't count.
This is a point.
He
also held back weapons.
This is another tactic that they do. They constantly say, "Oh, that's not true," but then when you say it is true, then they say, "But Trump," right?
Well, I mean, but Trump is a pretty good point.
You guys have to be honest in the way that you argue. You have to be honest in the way that you argue, and you're just not.
Isn't that what you just did with people that Trump hired? You say now work for DeSantis?
Yeah, I mean, Loomer, you've been on like a week-long bender.
So you guys only focus on COVID and hires. You don't look at anything substantive, and that is why DeSantis is just dropping like a rock. You guys don't.
Well, what
according to
Wisconsin poll? Let's talk about the Wisconsin poll.
Right, 1 second, guys.
Like the same whining about.
Let's talk about the Wisconsin poll.
It's just
Trump,
so silly.
Trump and DeSantis neck and neck in the Wisconsin poll that actually meets the GOP or NRC standards for being a real poll, because they polled over 900 people for this. And this shows people that will sway towards Republican or might.
You got to look at all the polls in a pattern. You can't just cherry pick one poll. I'm sorry, I know that hurts your feelings, but
the polls mean nothing right now.
So why are
okay,
the
guys.
other polls only hitting
Guys,
3?
listen, guys, there's like 5 people talking, and like I'm saying to you, when you're on the speaker panel, you can hear each other, but listeners can't hear when there's more than like 3 people talking. So let me go to Dr. Gorka, and then I'll go to Lev. Dr. Gorka, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Suleiman. I just jumped in. I heard 20 minutes of the one that crashed. I had to jump on this one when I heard it was up. Look, this is a point of discussion. You know, the Florida National Guard in Ukraine. Stop. The real question is, why is a guy like Ron DeSantis, who was touted by many who were Trump supporters as the next Trump, as the guy who would save us from Biden, literally nowhere today? Nowhere. He's between 20 and 40 points behind a man who has been indicted twice in Manhattan and by the feds? That's the interesting question. I've got some theories, and it has to do with his lack of charisma in a modern age of post politicians as a class. It's all about authenticity. It's about charisma. Why is Vivek actually going to outshine DeSantis in the latest polls? Because he's authentic, because he's charming. DeSantis is a black hole when it comes to charisma. That's his problem. And also what he said after the Bragg indictment, that I don't know about cash payments, hush money for porn stars. He lost the base. That's the really interesting study, not what Laura Loomis said yesterday or what somebody said about the Ukrainians and the Florida National Guard. This is a fascinating case study of new
So he didn't pay money to porn stars?
Stop
He didn't pay
talking.
that money?
All right, I was asked to talk. Now you can listen. Okay, thank you. It's a case
He didn't pay
study.
that money to a porn
It's
star,
a
huh?
case study in new populist politics. Okay, why is Bolsonaro just been barred for 8 years from running for president? Okay, in Brazil, it's the same phenomena. Why was Nigel Farage bank accounts, private and business, shut down by the oldest bank in England last week? Because he's a PEP, a person who's politically exposed. I mean, that's the fascinating thing, that Ron DeSantis, in an age of citizen politicians, is crashing and burning. I think that's what we should discuss.
If we're going to
Then why are you
discuss
so afraid of
politicians
them? Why are
crashing
you
and
guys
burning,
so
how
obsessed with
relevant
them?
is President Trump's 2020 loss to Biden, or does that not count?
If he's
Okay,
such not a
no.
threat, why are you guys so obsessed with him? Why do you talk about him every day? And shame on you, Sebastian Gorka, for not calling out Donald Trump about his support for the vaccines. I saw that interview with him.
I'm not
You
ashamed
were
about
throwing him
anything, because he
softball.
said it's up to you. It's
I
up,
will
Chris.
call out
Chris.
DeSantis every day on this stuff, too.
Don't misrepresent his interview on my show, you moron. I interviewed him. I know
It was
exactly what he
a
said
moron. It
on
was a
my
horrible
show
show,
10 days
Sebastian.
ago. He said that he said no mandates. That's the conservative answer. Unlike your guy who fucking shut down the schools in Florida, who put people in
Whoa.
prison because they kept their businesses open. Don't
didn't
come
put
to a
anybody in
gunfight
prison.
with a
He
butter
let them
knife.
free.
Gorka,
Those
you're
are my
you're
friends.
being a grifter right
Those
now.
are my
That's
friends,
like
Sebastian. He
you
set
pushed,
them free.
you promoted DeSantis as the next best thing for years, and then
I did.
Trump told you that.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can look. You have a long record of praising him, and then you switch your mind overnight. Like everybody knows, this DeSantis trended every day during the crazy summer of 2020 because it was not because Florida was shut down. It was because he was too dedicated to reopening. And this, and everybody in the room knows this. And then suddenly we need to pretend that it's not true.
So
and
why is he
great
crashing
tweets
and burning right now? Why is he 20 to 40 points behind? Let's talk about.
I don't know why did Trump crash and burn against Biden?
It's a real answer. Thanks for that answer. That's really good. You mean the guy who got more votes than any other incumbent president in history? Thanks.
Yeah, no. So the thing about having more votes than any incumbent is you're not running against people in the past. You're running against an opponent. See, that's the key. And I think a lot of people miss that very important point. That you're running against an opponent.
2020 is your answer to why your guy's crashing. That's genius.
No, I mean 2020 is my answer to
Max,
why would we nominate someone who already lost? But that's
Max, this is one of Ron DeSantis's weak points, right? Is because people were paying attention in 2020, right? In addition to the ballot mules that we all saw on camera at the Dropbox. And no, I'm not just referring to 2,000 mules. I'm talking about independent investigations that were done in several of those states. All of that video footage can be obtained by anyone by doing open records requests. So you can see it for yourself. Secondly, we were all paying attention to all of the lawsuits to unseal ballots. We all were paying attention to the election integrity groups that were doing these FOIA requests for poll tapes and the voting machines. We were watching the Maricopa County audit. We were following Michael Gableman's report in Wisconsin, all the Zuckerberg money and how that was spent. So to sit here and pretend like Trump legitimately lost the 2020 election, you can do that all you want, but the majority of Republicans were paying attention.
that's not really. I mean, Mullins, you're kind of missing the point. You're kind of.
Let me finish.
You're missing the point. That you're kind of arguing past me here.
Points, Max. Okay, Max, can I finish my point?
You've made your point.
So the majority of us were paying attention to all of those things. So trying to gaslight voters into believing Trump legitimately lost is shooting DeSantis in the foot by not acknowledging all of the election fraud that we know and saw.
Okay,
take
you've
place.
made your point. So here's the thing, like like a lot of malfeasance happened. Here's the problem. Like the 2020 election happened, right? Okay, you done? Okay, that's nice. So anyway, the 2020 election happened, right? And like Mr. Trump was in power, he was the president, and he couldn't stop it. And like you've given me no reassurance that next time will be different. I mean, we have like scammers who are saying like, don't vote early, don't vote by mail, and then Trump kind of goes back and forth and it's like he'll alternate between like raising money for ballot harvesting and then using that money on anti-DeSantis attack ads. Like, I don't really trust that he has any dedication to building the infrastructure. And I also don't trust that even if he builds the infrastructure, that he's not going to step on it by like telling people not to vote early, and then I'll like all this other stuff. Like you talk about like, oh, they stole in the middle of the night. It's like, okay, again, he was president, he was incumbent. And now you're telling me he's in a more advantageous position now as an insurgent with Biden in full control of the federal government. It's really unfair. Like you can say, it's like if you fight a war and your opponent fights dirty, it's like, yeah, it really sucks and it's unfair. But you don't reward a general because he like tried his best and failed. You elevate the best person to lead your troops in the battle.
So how is that a pro DeSantis point that we had massive election fraud so bad that it actually overwhelmed the White House that the DOJ didn't open up a single election fraud investigation? The FBI was not only spying on Trump, but they were suppressing the laptop. How does a new guy come in and fix this without any power whatsoever?
Fundamentally, I just reject the idea that everybody else is as incapable of dealing with adversity as Mr. Trump is. That's the fundamental issue here.
If you'd let me finish, Max, instead of cutting everyone off, okay? The same problem affects all GOP candidates.
His name is Brian, DC.
No, it's not. It is. I spoke to Brian this weekend at the Moms for Liberty conference. It's not the same person. You cannot like Max. You can dislike him. You can say he's a DeSantis still. I don't like him. They're not the same.
Well, I'm just supposed to take your word for it. I've actually shown evidence.
Loomer, you haven't shown any evidence.
I've seen the evidence, and I wasn't convinced.
Let me just say this about Loomer. A lot of people might not remember this, but the reason that the Women's March doesn't exist right now, and why Loomer was banned off of Twitter, is because she exposed their anti-Semitism in their leadership.
Her best work. I was just reading your book, Laura. I was just reading Loomer. Everybody read Laura Loomer's book. It's like Rules for Radicals, but even better. Laura, you also blew the lid off of the election fraud going on in New York. I didn't know about that. You dressing up in the burqa for the women's
and also in Florida too. I mean, people say, "Oh, you never say anything nice about DeSantis," but I want to remind people that it was my reporting that exposed the box of mail-in ballots in the back of the rental car at the international airport in Fort Lauderdale that pretty much exposed
100%.
the election heist in Florida in 2018. So before Rush
Laura,
Limbaugh
you
died,
may have gotten them, helped get him in office to begin with.
I did.
Your reporting helped Trump get in office.
So let's tap.
So
let's tap into that. Honestly, the question.
I have a question.
I'd like
both.
to. I feel like we interrupted Rogan. I'd like him to finish his thought.
Yeah, sorry about that, Rogan.
That's okay. I just wanted to give Loomer a shout out. So my only point being, election fraud is not a Trump or DeSantis issue. It's a GOP issue that we have to face, that we will have to, regardless of who wins this primary, we're going to all have to come together and fight like hell to make sure that they can't steal this again. I just think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that it's, Trump or DeSantis is going to do better. We need Ronna McDaniel to get off her ass and put ballot harvesting plans in place instead of letting Turning Point Action do all the heavy lifting and Scott Pressler. So that's just something that we as the GOP need to come together to fight.
But do you think
we saw? I underestimated how powerful the deep state was in 2020.
Rogan, do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that there is someone who is more capable of combating the nefarious actions of the deep state than Trump was when he was removed from office by it?
I think Trump is the biggest honey badger in the entire primary, and that's why he has 50, 60%. The American people aren't looking, they aren't prioritizing as their number one thing anti-woke policies. If they were, DeSantis would be in the lead by a mile. They're looking for someone to go in and beat the shit out of the deep state that has taken over this country and is going to completely turn us into a Marxist totalitarian state if we don't have an absolute brawler to go in there. That's why I support President Trump, and that's why a lot of people do.
But what do you say?
So on top of
I don't
that,
want to be combative.
Who was more successful? Who was more successful, Rogan, at dismantling these things? You live in Florida. You saw that we got a Protection of Medical Conscience Act put in. We got mask mandates banned. We got vaccine mandates banned. We got DeSantis is the guy that sued the airline so he get rid of those mask mandates. I think you made a video about it, and you've seen this. Is he not better at taking on the deep state and actually winning than Trump is?
But the question is not about
loopholes in all those bills. If you actually read the bills, there's loopholes in so many of the things that
I read every one of them.
Puts out.
We're on rabbit trails again. We're on rabbit trails. The question is, we know
in all of them, and the mainstream
please,
media is in DeSantis' back pocket.
The question is not whether DeSantis or Trump will be better once they are in office at combating the deep state. The Trump community believes that Trump is the best man for it, and I see a lot of merit in that, and the same with the DeSantis community. The question that is asked, that every Republican that I know, that I have spoken to from Indiana to DC and back again, is asking is, if, given that, and we all, from Laura all the way to Max, kind of united around this, that if there was election fraud in the 2020 election, as many of us have claimed, what is the plan to combat it? I don't want to hear how angry Trump is at DeSantis. I don't want to hear how angry DeSantis is at Trump. I want to know, how do we make it to 2024 and beat this election fraud that we've been talking about for the last 2.5 years? So far, I haven't heard Trump say it. Yes, tell me.
State by state action on the legislative level and in the courts. And I know this is going to upset a lot of the DeSantis folks, but people like Carrie Lake are leading the way. They never give up. She may not be successful, but she has already established new precedent.
She has name one victory Carrie Lake has had. She's had none.
She won the GOP primary against a well-funded establishment candidate. You know, let me finish, please. You have to fight this in the courts, okay? When
that is an answer, thank you.
Fraud, you have to fight it. You have to be unashamed, unabashed, and you have to go all the way. She has now set precedent in Arizona that you can actually look at signature verification. That is a small step forward. This stuff is happening in Georgia, Wisconsin. Again, people like Scott Pressler and Harmeet Dillon and others. I mean, it's the courts. That is the one branch where we actually have a tactical advantage for at least the next 5 to 10 years. If we use it, we are making strides. Pennsylvania, I believe, said mass mail-in ballots are unconstitutional or drop boxes.
And don't forget the Secretary of States that were polled as well on election issues.
Yes, so we are chipping away.
It's more than the courts.
Level action.
It's more than the courts. The U.S. Constitution is clear. It is the state houses that run. This is why the whole DeSantis can fix it thing is so bogus. The U.S. Constitution is clear. The state houses run federal elections. They decide how long to vote for, whether there's voting, whether there's signature verification. It is a local state-by-state action. And then it's individual action, okay? You've got to scare the people in the state houses in Pennsylvania to actually follow the Pennsylvania Constitution, which states that the Secretary of State and the governor have no control over the elections. You can't have 45 days of voting. You can't have, you know, this. You've got to play it state by state. And this is why it's not Trump's fault, 2020. It is utterly, completely the RNC and the GOP. The fact that Rona sat on her fat ass and didn't actually send lawyers in advance to the states that had 60 days of voting to make sure we had people on the ground when every stinking ballot was being processed to make sure that they're real ballots. But only after the election he said, Kurt Schlichter's a good guy. Let's deploy him to, Nevada. It's a little bit late then. We love these people, but you can't deploy them after the election. We don't fix this. This is not a federal problem. The U.S. Constitution is clear. States run elections. We have to make the GOP so frightened in those states they will never get reelected that they have clean elections.
Sebastian, right. You're actually right, Sebastian. Now, let me ask you this. What about Florida? Everybody's ignoring the 2022 election where we had a red wave. Down here in Broward County, if people had actually run for commissioner, if I put my flip-flop up to run for commissioner and put a Republican next to it, it would have won. Miami went red. Palm Beach Commission went red. A Republican school board member got elected down here. I mean, we had this red wave, and let me tell you what DeSantis did. He came down here to Broward County, right at the courthouse, right next to where I live, and he, flanked by all these Broward sheriffs, comes in and announces the arrest of 20 people for illegally voting and makes a big stink out of it, and, you know, sent quite a message with that. And he has his Bureau of Election Crimes to investigate this as a law enforcement thing, because the problem with Carrie Lake is she was trying to have these signature matches overturned. And I'm telling you, by the time it gets to signature match, it's too late. And yes, the signature match is arbitrary. It's a law enforcement thing. So my question is, after seeing what a great election we had, and sure, it wasn't perfect. I'm sure somebody can tell me somewhere where there was some problems. You're never going to get it perfect. But as far as the whole country, Florida did a damn well good job. So instead of going after DeSantis and calling him a rhino and saying he killed his, his friend or whatever, and all these other crazy things, and why don't we just look at what he did in 2022, what happened in Florida, the Florida blueprint, and do that in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and follow that. But I think there's a lot of resistance to doing that because it's Ron DeSantis, and he's become so polarizing ever since he dared to challenge King Henry VIII, Donald Trump, who's entitled to the nomination, please.
But when he arrested those people, or threatened to arrest those people for election vote in Florida, was that before or after he had to pardon the people who were jailed for keeping their business open in Florida?
Oh, those were my friends Mike and Jillian Carnevale. Yeah, what happened with that?
So was he before or after?
What does it matter? It was
because people went to prison for keeping their business open in Florida. Don't give me that. It was a municipal authority. The governor let them go to prison for keeping their business open.
They didn't go to prison.
This is the great COVID hero.
I mean, I've already been the whole thing. It's a fact that under DeSantis's Department of Health, through an order, people were sent to jail. The video has been out for a long time. It survived community notes. It's a real thing. DeSantis's Department of Health put an order out and had 2 people basically ordered to stay indoors.
I thought we were talking about election fraud.
Well, I'm answering.
I mean, this is all so grifty. Like, Trump was pushing for lockdowns until the final day of he was in office, and everyone knows it. And people say it doesn't count because he didn't have an executive order. Right. All these national parks were shut down somehow.
You notice they didn't deny it, so just want to put he didn't deny it, so I just want to put that out there.
Okay, let me go to Free. Let me go to Free because he's had his hand up for a while, and then I'm gonna go to Live. Go ahead, Free.
What's up, guys? Thank you for letting me up on the stage. This is the premise of the question, right? As I heard it when I first got in this space, is why is DeSantis so far behind and Vivek is coming up in second? It's an absolutely nonsense premise. Like, we don't have national primaries in the Republican Party and in this country. So to look at national polls, right, to poll somebody in Oregon and say, well, that means that, Trump is way ahead is absolutely nonsense. The race is happening right now in Iowa. That's where it's at. If you're talking to me about a national poll, I can tell right off the bat that you're full of it, right? So Vivek is not in a close second, or he's not running up in second in Iowa. Let's look at Iowa and let's look at the actual pollsters who don't have a D rating with 538. Anytime somebody's talking to you about a national poll, it's absolute nonsense. At this point in the 2007 or 2008 election, Hillary Clinton was winning with Black Americans. Hillary Clinton was winning with Black Americans. It is so early, you wouldn't believe it. And in all the races previous, Iowa didn't make up their mind until like the final 2 weeks of the race. So where does this premise come from that DeSantis is far behind is what I want to know. All it is gaslighting and propaganda. Where does this idea come from that he's far behind? It's July, folks. It's July. Chill out. Like, he's running a good race. He's doing what he needs to do. Trump has dropped 5 points in Iowa in the past month. He's going to continue to sink like a stone. If we went off of him being ahead right now, then Rudy Giuliani would be president because he was ahead, right? Michelle Bachmann was ahead at one point. Jeb Bush was a. Just relax, man. Like, he's running a good race. Let's be the smart people. Let's be the smart people, and let's not cite national polls. Can we do that, everybody? Let's
Okay, so
stop
let me
playing
just
that
give.
game.
Okay, so let me just give Heather a chance to respond. Heather.
I mean, I kind of agree that like polls can be skewed any which way. So I've always taken polls like a grain of salt. I think for me personally, as somebody that travels all over the country, like I can pretty much gauge where people stand. And other than these Twitter spaces with people like Chris and Max, I never, ever, ever go anywhere and see people with DeSantis gear on. I don't see people enthusiastically saying, "Oh my God, I love DeSantis." Like the base is not there. And even when you look at the rally size, it's so funny because every time Trump holds a rally, the DeSantis cheerleaders on Twitter will be like, "Oh, they'll try to minimize the numbers or whatever." But here's the thing. Where's DeSantis's numbers, right? Like, he doesn't have any. He holds these rallies, and more often than not, he will piggyback off of something else. Like, he'll be a keynote speaker for some fundraiser, and there will be people in the room that may or may not even support DeSantis, but then his entourage will photograph the room and try to promote it as like, look at all these DeSantis people. But when he actually holds a solely DeSantis rally, the numbers are so low when compared to President Trump. And again, going back to my point, many of us in the Republican Party, the reason President Trump has such a loyal following, and again, it's not a cult. This is why we all don't like Lindsey Graham, even though Trump does, because we're not in a cult. We just support him because he's authentic. He follows through on what he says he's going to do. And that's something you don't get with DeSantis. He can't sit there and avoid talking about things like election fraud in the 2020 and 2022 elections, when at CPAC, the number one issue amongst conservatives in the straw poll was election integrity. So you can't keep dodging these things and portraying this sort of false persona and expect to win over voters that are currently supporting President Trump. And that's why Vivek is doing so good, because he was outside of the Miami courthouse saying, you know what, this isn't right, what they're doing to him. He's standing firm in his morals and convictions and being authentic in the process. And neither one of those we get from DeSantis, which is why I almost think the space is irrelevant considering all of the national issues at hand right
Heather,
now.
can I ask you a
why are
question?
we really
Great,
waiting?
then you
Wait,
can
hold on. Let
leave.
me ask Heather.
Yeah, hi, Heather.
Heather, can I ask you a question? Are you saying that
Sure.
crowd size equals you're going to win? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that if somebody wears your merch, that means you're going to win?
No, I think I think turnout is like a good gauge. I think if somebody goes, if you're campaigning in the basement like Joe Biden, or if you
Donald
go
Trump.
Well, Donald Trump is doing
he's
that, and
he's
if
really
you
not.
look at the jumbotron right now, that is what your guy lost to last time. That's what your guy lost to.
He didn't lose to. He didn't.
But
There was election fraud, and you wanting to
by
sit
your
here and
standard,
pretend like it didn't happen is
Heather,
why your
So
guy.
Heather,
wait a minute, Heather, by your standard, based on the crowd sizes that Donald Trump was pulling in 2020 compared to that picture that I've got up in the jumbotron right now, it shouldn't have even been close. Let's stop the nonsense that says that because you can get some super fans to come out and see you, that means that you're going to win. That means that you're a winning candidate. It's absolute nonsense. I will never go to a political rally. You want to know why? Because I have a life. I've got things to do. I've got a business to run. I got a family that I love. I've got friends. I'm not going to a political rally. You're not going to see me stand out in the rain to go see DeSantis. But guess what? I will do. I'm going to go to the voting booth and vote for him. So what you guys have to do is get back to reality, right? No one was wearing Romney merch when Romney won the primary. Nobody was wearing McCain merch when McCain won the primary. Donald Trump is very good at marketing, but he's not good at winning elections. And he won a fluke election.
Can I push back
I'm
on that a
gonna
little
land
bit?
my plane real quick. I'm gonna land my plane. It's 5 seconds. He won a fluke election against Hillary Clinton, one of the most just like absolutely despised and loathed people in human history. Like, He won a fluke election against her and hasn't won a damn thing ever since. Spare me the nonsense, guys. Let's get back to reality.
Okay, so let me just point out that until 2020, enthusiasm was the determining factor as to who would win. Now we can look at why that was not the case in 2020, and there are two possibilities. It could either be that there was some level of fraud that was happening there, or to be fair from the other side, it could be that the reason enthusiasm had always been so significant and may no longer be as significant is because of mail-in voting. The reason you need enthusiasm is because while you may go to the polls, whether or not you're willing to have time to go to a rally, that doesn't mean that everyone, particularly the youth, because the youth is the one who tends to scream a lot and vote a little, but that did not happen in 2020. And a large part of that is because they didn't have to actually go to a poll. They could literally have their parents fill out their ballots for them and drop them in the mail. So when you're saying enthusiasm doesn't matter, I think that historically that's wrong. However, it probably matters less going into 2024 than it did at any time prior to 2020, if that makes sense.
And then how do you
Let me
measure
just go
enthusiasm?
to
Like,
Freeze. Let me just go
is there
to
more than one way to measure enthusiasm? That's my question for you. Is enthusiasm only measured by who has the most spare time to go out and hang out and wear a red hat and listen to a guy read off a teleprompter? Is that the only way to measure enthusiasm?
No,
It wasn't
it's
just
also
that.
measured by marketing, right? Like, think about it. Every single place you go, there's Trump merch being sold. Why? Because people are buying it. If DeSantis was so popular, somebody in the free market would be putting his name on a hat and selling it to make a buck. But unfortunately,
they're
he's not
everywhere,
that. He's
Heather.
not that
You kidding me?
popular, and Trump is a walking economy. I
Just
can't
So
even
when,
Yeah, he's a
when
walking
DeSantis
grip.
won re-election, by 20 points, how many people were wearing DeSantis hats when that happened? Was that a merch bonanza? I don't think so. People went out and
Do
voted.
you mean how many people were wearing DeSantis merch when he was
Normal
campaigning with
people.
Donald Trump in his campaign
Hey,
ads?
DeSantis
Yeah,
did
he
not was not
piggybacking off of
was
Trump's success, and now that he doesn't have Trump to piggyback off of, nobody wants to buy
Heather.
his stuff.
DeSantis very much
Can
did
we
not.
just
He
stop
like
the
famously
the
did not
arrogant
campaign
comments
with
like
Trump in
I have a life, I
2022.
don't go to political rallies? What kind of arrogance is that? Okay, I mean that's the kind
It's
of
kind of like the
elitist.
arrogance that you show,
That's the kind of
Sebastian.
elitist globalist. I don't go to rallies because I'm special. So let's
You say that with a British
So you're
accent.
an
Let's
elitist.
be
For
real.
some reason,
let's talk about
You say
let's talk
that
about
like
2020.
you're
Let's
going to dinner with the
let's
Queen,
put
man.
DeSantis and Trump aside for 1 second. Let's talk about 2020. Does anybody on this call know how many people voted on election day in 2020 as a
I know that
percentage of
Trump got
eligible?
beat by a corpse.
Do you know how many people vote? Don't be an asshole, because don't come to Twitter Space to be an asshole. All right. How many people out of the 100%? Out of the 100%, answer the question. Does anybody on this call? Does anybody on this call know out of 100% how many people voted on election day in 2020? Anybody?
I'll take a stab in the dark. Under 25.
It was, in fact, 25%.
Hot damn! I get the editor's trophy tomorrow.
Mailing out 81 million ballots wasn't the cover. If you think COVID wasn't the cover for the biggest election fraud in world history, then you shouldn't comment on politics in Florida or anywhere. You just don't understand what happened.
You and your British accent cannot prove it.
What happened in 2020. Let's talk about. You want to have an interesting conversation?
I have a
talk about how we get back to having an election day, not mailing ballots.
Sebastian, your guy told his voters not to vote by mail. Your guy told his voters not to vote in the easiest possible way.
My guy actually said mailing out tens of millions of ballots is the recipe.
Your guy told his voters not to vote by mail.
He said
your guy literally chose Blockbuster over Netflix.
Well, maybe he was just, too arrogant not to go to, campaign events.
He
maybe,
signed.
maybe
like
maybe
you
your
say
guy's
that
not very
sending
bright.
out mail ballots is a
You're so
mistake.
special.
He
All right,
gave like
guy
hundreds
who's
of
never
millions
been
of
in
dollars
politics.
for
I
mail
love this.
ballots.
I love this when the rhinos and DeSantis Sims come out. He's too stupid. A guy who'd never run for county dog catcher, never run for any political office, wins the first time. That's how dumb
Bro,
he was.
you're making the argument he doesn't know what he's doing.
My dude.
Like, I agree
he had
with
name
you.
recognition.
Like, I don't think.
So who cares? He
Guys,
hasn't won since then.
Guys, I know you're all excited for this. Chris, Free, and Max talking at the exact same time to respond.
I don't.
Nick,
Sorry, Phil.
maybe do coordination. One guy.
Yeah,
go
I
at
just
time,
have a
but
quick
yeah.
question. When President Trump signed the CARES Act, like, and gave hundreds of millions of dollars for universal mail balloting, does that count, or does it just like not count?
Sebastian, going once, going twice.
Those are called crickets.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, he passed
honestly,
legislation that
there's so
implemented
much
universal
stuff
mail
in those
ballot.
bills.
On
Like,
the other hand, he
I
tweeted that it
highly
was
doubt
bad.
they
So
were
who's
sitting there
to
in
say?
Oval
I guess.
Office. No, they weren't sitting there being like, "Hey, will you sign this CARES Act so that we can push mass mail-in ballots?" Right? You're probably twisting crap. It wasn't under the
I'm
guise of
probably
mass
twisting crap.
mail-in ballots.
Really?
I mean, it was
So
just
they
it was
might
in
have
the
used
bill.
some of the funds. They
COVID
might have
was.
used some of the funds, but actually, a lot of that mass mail-in balloting was paid for with Zuckerbucks. Okay, and it went to key swing counties, primarily Democrats in the swing states.
Yeah, I mean,
And
multiple things can be
who
bad
was
at once,
overseeing?
but like
guess
he
Who
still
banned
signed the
Zuckerbucks?
CARES Act. Like DeSantis did not sign the CARES Act. President Trump
So the
chose to sign the CARES Act, which contained millions and millions and millions of dollars for a permanent regime of mail voting. And the Zuckerbuck stuff is bad and should be banned. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for banning it. But it's a drop in the bucket compared to what President Trump chose to do when he signed a permanent regime
Can't hear
of
anything.
mail ballot into law.
If we
And I guess the answer, I guess Mr. Gorka's answer is it doesn't count. But like, in my opinion, the bills that you sign do count.
So just as a moment, because I'm actually going to step off here and go hang out with my kid who I've seen far too little today. And that's not a slam. That's not saying any of you all are. I'm just saying that's why I'm getting ready to head out. One thing that frustrates me. So at the Heritage Foundation, we have a no endorsement policy. I'm not endorsing any speaker. I'm not trying to be the bleeding heart journo who's, well, I just want to learn. But I do think that when this conversation, when we talk about the GOP nomination and we fight over it, I get a little aggravated because, we'll get into a conversation in which one person will say, well, DeSantis signed this law and then put these people in jail. But then when Trump signs the CARE Act, all of a sudden it's, well, he can't possibly be reading every little thing. And I think in that moment, that's a little disingenuous in the same way that we act very sanctimonious about one side getting to attack the other and all of the others. The thing that I believe most Republicans are concerned about regarding voter fraud is, what is the plan to stop it in 2024? And from the questions that was answered earlier, so far it's the state courts need to kind of figure it out, the state legislators and things like that. But I'm not really hearing President Trump talk about that. And that's one of the things that concerns me. If Trump is going to be the nominee, and if Trump's going to go out there and he's going to win this time against the voter fraud, why is he not outlining the plan to do so? That's my own personal things. I got to hop out. Thanks for hosting me. I appreciate it, guys. You take care.
Because there was no voter fraud.
Massive fraud. There was no massive
1 second,
fraud.
guys.
Guys, too many people jumping in. Lev, go ahead. I know you've had
and DeSantis people vowing never to vote for Trump and basically laughing at each other and destroying each other and saying they're the worst of the worst. How do you expect either one of them to win the general?
I love a Russian telling us there wasn't voter fraud. That's funny.
Sebastian, you're an idiot, so you just keep quiet.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I want to talk to. I want to talk to somebody that.
Let me answer that for you, Lev.
You're an
Let me answer that for
idiot,
you, Lev.
Sebastian. You.
Can I weigh,
go
can
ahead.
I weigh
Thank
in
you.
here?
Hey, Lev,
Can I
let me answer
weigh
that
in
for
on
you
that?
real quick. So, Trump turned off a lot of independent voters. Like, look at all the people who left the GOP and who vowed never to vote for Republicans because Trump is in office. And look at how he animates the Democrats to come out and vote. So if you look at the flip side of that, right, when Trump is no longer the nominee and he won't be the nominee this time, how many people are we going to bring back onto the right and into the Republican Party? How many parents who want to protect their children from the woke left? How many parents who want to protect their children from indoctrination? The same way Glenn Youngkin won Virginia, and the same way DeSantis won re-election in Florida. How many of those people are going to be brought back to the Republican Party by somebody like DeSantis? So the very small percentage of hardcore MAGA cultists who are not going to vote for DeSantis when he's the nominee, the small percentage, the very small percentage of hardcore MAGA cultists who are not going to vote for him and are going to sit at home are going to be replaced by a coalition of parents. It is the parents' revolution that's about to happen when DeSantis becomes the nominee, and that's how he's going to win, despite the goofballs who are cultists. That's my answer.
You know
It
you know
sounded
what cults
delusional, to
do?
be honest.
Cults try to character assassinate people and make you distrusting of them, and basically like set standards that you're not allowed to associate with these people, which is exactly what DeSantis supporters
You were
and the
so
left
Heather.
do.
You were
They
so
say
close. You were so close to
you're not
condemning
allowed
Trump
to
for the
support Trump,
blacklisting. You were so
or
close.
else. Oh yeah, okay. So the only people that support Trump are in a cult, right? Like that's the
Well, that's
argument
not
there,
what
that
he
no
said.
single
I
person
said small
can
percentage.
support Trump. No, you
Free. The one
use
thing
the
I'm going to
word
say is I think you had a
this.
great. I
Like
think
you
it's a great
use
answer.
left wing talking
But let me
points.
ask you a question.
Oh my
In
God,
reality,
you're
the one
so
thing I
dumb.
have to push back on you is that Trump. It's not a small percentage. He has a big percentage of the mega base. He has a huge base supporting, and that's why he's so ahead of the leads. So doesn't that worry you at all? I mean, you have to call realistically what it is. I mean, Trump has a huge following.
They don't
He
hold back.
like him or not like him. I mean, he does have. He's popular with a huge base, and his base is a lot stronger than DeSantis's base.
Right now.
So doesn't that worry you? Doesn't that worry you at all? That if DeSantis somehow, and I don't think DeSantis wins the primary. I think Trump wins, even though I don't like either one of them. But doesn't that worry you that if DeSantis somehow wins, that because of the Trump strong base? And another thing, what's stopping Trump from running as a independent? Because knowing Trump the way I know Trump, whatever you want to call him, he'll never give up and try to run in the race as an independent maybe and mess things up. So doesn't that concern you that the way the GOP is set up right now, they're just bound to lose?
No, not at all. So let me answer that real quick. Yes, Trump is popular right now, right? And if you look at the polls right now, people are gonna, people who are not paying close attention to the race, who haven't really been introduced to Ron DeSantis like that yet, they're automatically going to say the last guy that they voted for, or the person that they know the best. And right now, that's Trump. Totally get it, 100%. There is only a small percentage of those people who are willing to drink the Kool-Aid and do the suicide pact with Trump when it turns out that he is not the nominee, right? So like if Trump is not the nominee, most people just want to win, right? You put them up against a Biden or a Gavin Newsom, and all they want to do is win. They're not as invested as we are. You're never going to catch them on a Twitter space. Those people are not part of the cult. They may have some kind of affection for Trump, but if DeSantis is the nominee, they are absolutely riding and dying with DeSantis. And by the way, the polls also show that, because DeSantis is the clear second choice for those people who are Trump supporters. Like they don't have a problem with DeSantis. It's not like his unfavorables are like crazy high amongst Trump supporters. That's not the case at all. So when DeSantis is the nominee, I'm not concerned that Trump's hold on the GOP is going to cause people to say, hey, man, let's do the suicide pact and we're all going to drink the Kool-Aid and we're going to throw the election. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because they don't hate DeSantis.
Well then,
Let
flip
me
it.
ask you a
Hang on,
question.
Benir.
One
We have
second,
wasted a long time,
guys.
Lev.
Okay.
One second. Let me ask Lev a question. So Lev, previously when we had this debate, or it may have been the time prior, at one point you made is, because you spent time with DeSantis or you knew him, is that DeSantis basically sells himself out to the highest bidder. So he has no values. Whoever pays him the money, he'll change his position. I mean,
absolutely.
And you said that you were going to look into some examples that you knew of. So since then, have you come up with any examples of when he's done that in the past?
Well, I could tell you one example with me personally. I mean, when I met DeSantis in Washington, when he came begging me to have Trump support him, one of the things that we discussed, that he was anti-cannabis at the time. And I discussed with him, and I told him I can't support him at any, because I was a pro-cannabis guy. And as soon as DeSantis, 2 weeks later, it was reported, he gave me his word that he would go pro-cannabis if Trump would support him. And as soon as Trump supported it, he, was reported in the newspapers that he started becoming a pro-cannabis guy. So, I mean, that's just one example of it, that he switches to what benefits him the most. But a question to Free also, I mean, with all the you're saying that Trump is a cultist, and I believe that it's a cult. I believe I was in a cult. I believe Sebastian has had cultists over there, and with the cult being the way it is, do you vote for him if he's the nominee? Do the DeSantis people give up on everything that they believe in, and then they vote for a guy that is indicted, that's a cultist, that has no idea what he's doing, like everybody's saying, like all the DeSantis people are saying? Do you go out there and vote for him?
I think 99% of DeSantis people are going to vote, would vote for Trump. I am a special case because I absolutely believe that this is chess, not checkers. And I think the thing that's most worrying about Trump being the nominee or Trump getting back into office again is that his supporters believe that he can do no wrong. I don't think that's what the founders envisioned for this country. I believe that he's supposed to be answerable to the people. And if he's running a cult, I don't want him anywhere near the Oval Office. So my feeling is that if Trump is the nominee, I would do everything in my power to make sure that he does not get into the Oval Office, because I believe at that point, we need to kind of destroy and rebuild. We need to get the cancer out of the Republican Party, that being Trump. And I'm not talking about everybody who supports him. I'm talking about hardcore MAGA cultists. They are an absolute cancer. I believe they're demonic, satanic, whatever you want to call it.
See, here's the thing. Wait,
I agree with you 100%.
One second, guys. Let me ask Free a question. Chief, I'm going to go to you. So let me ask Free a question. So Free, you've and Chris has given 100%. I thought he didn't agree with you previously. He said he would vote for Trump if he won the primary, but we'll come to Chris in a second. But Free, so what? I mean, there's been a number of DeSantis Trump debates, and one other than yourself, generally speaking, are most, and like you said, 99% of DeSantis supporters, if Trump was to win, would vote for Trump. But on the other way around, a large proportion of Trump supporters have said unequivocally that they won't support DeSantis and they'll actually write Trump in, even if DeSantis is the nominee. Based on that, if you want, I mean, I know you don't actually, but if for any other person who wants Biden out, wouldn't it be more smart to vote for Trump?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, that again, that's playing checkers and not chess. This country needs a.
Actually, let me ask Chris. Oh, sorry, Chris. Let me ask Chris the question, because actually, y'all said you'd probably support Biden over Trump in that scenario.
No. I didn't say I was going to support Biden. Listen. If
well, how do you remove the cancer? How do you remove the cancer then? If you were going to make sure Trump doesn't win, surely you ensure the other guy wins. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but ensuring that the other guy wins and spends 4 years in office fighting. So I think if Trump is the nominee, the down ballot movement begins the next day, right? The down ballot movement, in my opinion, is we will vote in and we will make sure that we prop up and vote in every single Republican down ballot so that we can fight Biden or Gavin Newsom or whoever it is. But what we're going to also do is save the Republican Party, because this country needs a Republican Party. And
so free, you're in the election.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Biden, you've got Trump, and you've got a third party like Libertarian and a few independents. Who do you put your tick on then?
No one.
Okay, so you don't vote. Okay.
Yeah, no, I vote down ballot. I vote for Republican senators. I vote
that. Free. I got that. Free.
Yeah,
but
hold on. I'm gonna land my plane on the reason why. I'm gonna land my plane on the reason why.
You said they were demonic.
No, but let me land my plane on the reason why.
Oh, okay.
Listen, if the Laura Loomers and the Alex Brucerowitz of the world and the Sebastian Gorkas of the world are allowed to continue to infiltrate and to harm the Republican Party, we won't have a Republican Party. We won't win. First of all, he's not going to win the general election.
We are the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Who are you kidding?
Okay. Nobody likes.
No, you're the mega
Sorry,
cultist.
it's spoken like a second place.
Laura, if you are the Republican Party, why didn't you win when you ran? Crickets. I didn't think so. So again, we're not going to allow these perpetual losers.
By the way.
That's not Laura. That's Heather.
Actually, Suleiman, I have a big I can confirm that Heather and Loomer are the same person. You can just check my. You can check my blog.
Max.
It's called Max.
No, but Max, they've been on the stage at the same time. Can you and Brian come on stage at the same time, and then we can verify? But Chris,
I swear I thought that was Laura Loomer talking. She sounds exactly like her, and I believe they've never been in the same room at the same time.
They're the same person. It's very clear at this point.
They have.
Clearly, Free's judgment is not the greatest.
No one can sound like
we saw them
in that type
but
of
anyway,
way.
let me go to Chris because
Come on.
Okay, I don't get what Free and Max's argument is that they were both on stage at the same time. Max and Brian haven't been on stage at the same time, but maybe if they do, that'll dispel any of these allegations or insinuations. But anyway, Chris, same question to you, because I'm sure you've been on stage before and you said if Trump was to win the primary, you would vote for Trump because for you need Biden out. Obviously, Free doesn't agree with you, but but then you 100%ed him when he said that, made them comments. So, Chris, what's your thoughts?
Well, if Trump's the nominee, I can only pray that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the nominee and beats Biden on the Democrat side so I can vote for him, because he's got principles. And really, the most important thing to me.
But what if it's Biden? What if it's Biden Trump, Chris?
Well, I'll never vote for Biden. I mean, it's the country.
What if it's
turning
Trump Kennedy?
Under him. If
He just said it would be Kennedy. Chris just said
no, I mean if it was a Trump Kennedy ticket, like a unity ticket, like Steve
Oh,
Bannon
no.
was saying.
Kennedy ain't going to be on a ticket.
That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. But Chris, if it was Biden, Trump, I know you said you wouldn't vote for Biden, but would you vote for Trump?
I got to tell you, I was hoping for Trump. After I asked Ron DeSantis this question, I put it in the Jumbotron. I asked Ron DeSantis last time I saw him, would you consider seizing Dr. Fauci's assets like any other drug lord? Okay. It was a little bit of a funny comment, or trying to be funny, but at the same time, deadly serious. And he gave a deadly serious answer that we must hold the people responsible for what they did during COVID, the shutdowns. And look, if he has capable whatever in this, fine, hold him responsible too. But he's the only one who is saying that we need to hold people responsible for shutting down the country, for keeping kids out of school, for mask mandates, for vaccine mandates, for all of it. And it all came straight from the Trump White House.
So that means you wouldn't vote for him, Chris.
Now,
so you wouldn't vote for Trump. Okay,
well,
that's
Trump had. Let me just tell you, Trump had a chance after that DeSantis question. Trump, or somebody reported that Trump would be addressing the vaccine side effects soon. Look, he had 2021. I was running around in a 47th hat by Forgiato Blow, like saying that we need Trump back. I wanted him back. I wanted him to run again. But in 2021, he was mum on vaccine mandates. He went around the country going, take the vaccine, and told when his supporters would boo him over it, he'd tell them to shut up, and just showing that he has no grasp of this. And him saying that he didn't think that anybody or he did anything wrong during the shutdowns, and basically saying that he would do it all over again. We can't go through that again.
Chris, but it's not just that. It's not. So what you're basically
Trump
saying,
has
it's not the
specifically
vaccines. You're saying
said-
it's the person. The person.
No.
He's a cultist, demonic. Exactly.
Oh my God, you guys are ridiculous. Seriously, you're ridiculous. Trump has not said he would do it all over again. What he
Oh, yes,
said
he
when
did, Heather.
what-
He said he would do it. Heather,
listen.
he said
Let me
exactly
finish.
that.
Let me set the record straight. When Trump has been asked about the vaccines, he specifically says there's a lot of people in this country that believe the vaccines were needed and were a good thing. I personally have family members of mine that are vaccinated that believe wholeheartedly in that vaccination.
He was vaccinated.
And guess what? From
He
a
took the
political,
vaccine.
shut up, Lev. Seriously, like I don't know, like, well,
But
shouldn't you be
that's
worried
but
about Russian politics? I mean, seriously.
Heather, you should go drink some more Kool-Aid, Heather.
You know what,
haven't had
guys?
enough.
The
Drink a little bit
Trump,
more.
the
Drink a little
Trump
bit more.
party is way more fun. So if you guys want some Kool-Aid, I got a nice cold glass for you when you're done with your lame loser Ron DeSantis party. But seriously, like you guys don't care about
You're
facts.
talking Trump Kennedy ticket. You're not just on the Kool-Aid. You're on drugs too.
Do you know who Trump tapped to go sit in on a meeting with Dr. K. Jr. and he admitted that in his Joe Rogan
Well, that's
interview.
it's
So
actually the
why
opposite.
so
I mean,
far?
Heather, it's kind of the opposite.
Let me
Like,
set that straight.
No, Trump asked
Heather.
RFK Jr. to go and meet with Dr. Fauci. That's a fact.
Chris,
RFK
you know
Jr.
the story of this. Tell her.
Look, Trump wanted to make Bill Gates
Yeah,
his
okay.
science officer. I mean, how crazy can you be? Listen to what happened.
Strategically, Chris.
Can I please
Let me finish landing my plane. Okay,
All
because
right, go ahead. Keep talking over me. All right.
strategically, there's a good chunk of this country right now that actually believe the vaccines were a thing because they've been high on propaganda thanks to mainstream networks like NBC, CNN that were pushing all of this COVID fear mongering. They all lined up to get those vaccines, and a lot of them aren't ready to swallow that pill that there's some issues with them. My family
So
members
Trump is
are like
lying
that.
to
So
them?
listen,
What are you talking about? Trump took credit for
like
Operation
Trump.
Warp Speed.
No,
He sat there and
let me
pounded it, but
finish
that's
what
the
I'm
fact.
saying. You guys don't want to hear the alternative perspective. You're trying to talk over me, so people listening can't hear both sides of the story. That's what you're doing. Let me finish. So half of the country right now believe in these vaccines, right? And if you're going to go into a general election where Biden is running this country into the ground, one thing that you would be strategically better off doing is walking a neutral line. Even if you're aware there's some shit going on with these vaccines, you're better off sitting there acknowledging, hey, half the country wants them. I never mandated it as a president. Nobody
He
was forced
mandated
to.
it at his property.
No. Let me finish.
Operation Warp
Be
Speed.
quiet, Chris. Be quiet, Chris.
He
So when
mandated
you're
it at
going
his
into
property.
you're
You're
going
lying.
into the general election, if
So
you
you want
want
him to lie to the
have a
You
people?
can't sit
He,
here
he
and
can't
spread
be man enough.
propaganda
I
and
He
just
can't be
can't
man enough
Oh
to
my
believe
come up
that.
and
God, you
stand
guys
what he
look at them.
believes.
They're like a pack of fleas, dude.
because
They
you're
don't
spreading
shut
You're
up.
lying.
You're lying.
No,
Listen, guys, there's way many people. Heather, finish your point, and then I'll let somebody respond.
I
Go
would
ahead.
love
Just
to
30
finish
seconds.
my point if these
She's straight up
three.
lying, Sully.
Oh my
Like,
God.
it's
Let her
ridiculous.
finish her point, and then you can refute her. Heather, go ahead. Finish your point, and then I'll give Joe a chance to refute your point. Go ahead, Heather.
The point I'm making is that you have a very divisive nation on whether or not the vaccines are effective or not. And so strategically, it makes more sense going into an election to not be hardcore polarizing on one of those issues if you want to appeal to a larger voting bloc. And so DeSantis is actually shooting himself in the foot for taking such a hardcore position on one issue when it comes to going into the general election. Trump is more likely to pull in people like my own family members by not taking a radical position one way or another, but saying, look, there's some people that like it, there's some people that don't, and ultimately everyone made their own choice. I don't even care if he came out today and said he was for the vaccines. At the end of the day, I'm still unvaccinated because of President Trump, because I was never forced to get it. I was able to choose it, right? And the whole point of government is not to make decisions for you. It's to protect your right to make them for yourself.
Heather, has
Okay, all
Trump
right.
ever
So
admitted
what
that
did
he
I
he
was
can't
wrong?
do
make
in
decisions. I
Has
can't
he
make
ever admitted
decisions
that
for
he was wrong,
myself
Heather?
when the president
Let me just
lies
go,
to
Joe.
people
Let
for a
Joe
month
finish.
and a half.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, people can't make decisions for themselves, Heather, when the president lies for a month and a half on how deadly the virus is. How about that? Right? When you lie to people, they can't make their own choice.
How is that
Go ahead.
relevant? How is that
How's
relevant
that-
when the claims
because-
when the claims of him lying were in March of 2020 and you don't have a vaccine until 3 days after the election? At least there's no
What do you mean?
publicly known
Her
vaccine.
point was
So you're
that
saying
here was
how is that
her
relevant?
point. Her point was that he gave people the choice. You don't give people the choice when you lie to people. Following, do you?
What did he lie
it's
about?
not
What did he
dead,
lie
if I
about?
tell you
What did he lie about?
he said
Safe
it
and
wasn't
effective.
deadly, it's just
Oh,
like the
geez.
flu. But then he told Bob Woodward that it
Well,
was
it
deadly
was
stuff.
just like the flu until they
No,
said
he
Joa,
said
that
it was
ivermectin
deadly
Joa,
and
stuff.
hydroxychloroquine.
In
If you had
February,
taken ivermectin
okay.
and hydroxychloroquine,
Heather,
it was
can I
no
finish
more
now?
deadly
Can
than
I
the
finish
flu.
now? Can I finish now? Like, if you want
I'm
to be treated
debating
with
your
respect, I
argument.
think you should do the same, shouldn't you? Right? If he
Should
lied
have
to,
some
he told
chlorine.
people it was deadly stuff in February. This is deadly stuff. It kills people. Then he came on TV 2 weeks later and said this thing will pass. It's just like the flu, when he knew it wasn't. He lied
Yeah,
to people.
that was his hope. We also saw Nancy Pelosi
And the
say,
reason
"Come
why
to
you seem like
Chinatown."
a
We also
cult,
saw
the reason
Nancy
you guys seem
Pelosi,
like
the
a cult, is
speaker,
because you're
go
blind to
saying,
that
"Come
shit.
to
1 second, Joe.
Chinatown."
Let Following finish now. Go ahead, Follow.
Yeah, when she's screaming, "Come to Chinatown," and any ban on incoming flights from China is xenophobia. We heard the left screaming when he first started raising the
But they
alarm.
weren't the
No matter how
president,
he handled
follow.
COVID,
But they
no
weren't the
matter how
president.
he handled COVID, no matter how he handled COVID, no matter what he was going to do, if he was going to be aggressive on COVID, the left was going to use as an opportunity to punish him, and if he was going to give optimism, they were going to try to punish him and call him a liar. knew how they played it very, very effectively. The lockdowns were very effective. If you recall how strong he was in January 2020 when he gave a State of the Union about a union that was swinging like in nobody's business, and they played COVID perfectly to destroy his reputation, or at
He
least
allowed
tarnish his
them to play.
reputation.
He allowed.
Look, you want to see
He allowed them to
you want
play.
to see how
Fletcher,
full of
you're being a
He
joke
was
now.
no.
He
You wanna
allowed
see
them
how
to
full of
play.
shit
He
this
allowed them
is?
to get played. He didn't take a stance. He tried to appease both sides by being a liar. He didn't stand up to what he believed in, and then he tried to take credit for whatever he thought worked. When he thought the vaccine was working, he ran out and started pounding his chest, saying that Operation Warp Speed. He was the quickest. We wouldn't have vaccine for another 10 years if it wasn't for him. So he played both sides because he's a liar.
Heather,
He tries to
Fauci a
play to the
it's not
fight. He has
that.
on the
no.
way out.
Heather said she
How do
didn't.
you
Heather said
explain
she
him
didn't take
giving
the
Fauci a
vaccine because of
commendation on
Trump.
the way out the door? Like, why would he give Fauci a presidential commendation on the way out the door? Explain that to me, Heather. Following somebody.
What do you mean? Okay,
Why
so
would he
at the
give
end of the
Fauci a
day,
presidential
President
commendation on the
Trump was
way
a
out the door?
businessman. He's not a doctor. He relied on a group of experts around him to fill him in. He realized and has admit in numerous interviews, if he'd have gone back, he would have made a few different decisions. And I don't think anyone
When did he ever say that? He never said
I
that.
don't think
Heather, this
anyone
is a
is sitting
direct
here
question
saying
that I
that like
asked you.
Trump is going to be 100% right
This
on
is the
every
direct
single
question that I
situation,
asked
but we
you,
believe
and
he's
I'm
honest
asking
and authentic
following as
enough
well.
to
He's not honest.
No,
wrong.
no, no.
Then he's
Heather,
gonna go back
Heather,
and
you're
not make the
Heather, you're
same
trying to
mistake
skip over
twice.
this. I asked you a direct question, and I'm
You're
asking
not going to
following
get a
the same
direct
thing.
answer. You know why,
When has
Free?
this
What do you
man?
Because she just said
When has
she
this?
said Trump.
When has this
She said
man?
Trump
Y'all
didn't
gonna let me
force her
finish
to take a
the question?
DeSantis was
vaccine.
singing Fauci's praise.
Guys, it's like four of you talking at the same time. Let's
Bro,
go.
she's saying Trump didn't force her to take a vaccine.
Where does the truth fit in,
What?
Heather? Like, where does telling the truth and letting the chips fall where they may? I mean, you want Trump to
Trump
kiss
is one
up
of
to
the
half
most
the.
truthful
Let me
politicians
finish,
we've had in
please.
Washington in a
Will you
long
He
time.
lied over
You do this
30,000 times.
filibustering thing.
Fact, Heather.
Oh my
30,000
God,
times.
I
Where
just
does
have
the
That's
one
a
truth
fact.
question for
matter
Heather and
about the
following and
damage
all the
this
Trump
vaccine
supporters
has
in here.
done and the people that have died and the myocarditis? Where does the
And
truth fit
and
in?
when has he
It's
ever?
not
There's
about
47 people
honestly,
talking at
this is
once.
It's not
honestly like
about
the
these
biggest
things.
Guys, honestly, I've had to mute you like 10 times. I don't get it. Like, as soon as one person talks, like 10 people have to jump in and talk at the same time. Maybe coordinate. I don't know what's happening, but just one person at a time. Chris and Free, you're on the same side and you're both arguing at the same time. Chris, go ahead.
Where
Go ahead, Chris. Is there some kind of glitch where once you mute, it remutes again within seconds? Go ahead.
Okay, where does doing the right thing fall into place? And we saw Trump, I think it was on the interview with Sebastian Gorka, where he was saying, oh, my Democrat friend, I've got some very close Democrat friends who said the vaccine's really great and I should go and take a lot of credit for it. They think it's really great. It saved billions of lives, billions of lives. What is he snorting up his nose? Is that cocaine in the White House really Trump's? Because what is he snorting up his nose to make him think that he saved billions of lives? I think he really thinks he's that character in his NTFs, that he saved the world and did all these things. He's not looking at the Bayer's numbers. He's not reading Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book. And by the way, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was going to head the Vaccine Safety Commission until Trump's inaugural committee took $1 million from Pfizer and he had a meeting with Bill Gates, and suddenly he's all about vaccines and stuff. And you know what? Even all that stuff, me and I'm sure a lot of people were willing to forgive him, even though he did all this stuff. I pushed to have him reelected. I went to rallies. I did Stop the Steal rallies. I did everything I could. And I was hoping when he came out in 2021 and started doing his Save America rallies. You remember that? And it was like, yes, Trump's having his rallies again. The country's going to be saved. We're going to be good. He had the bully pulpit to speak against these mandates, to speak against what Cuomo was doing.
Chris, just summarize your point in 15 seconds and then I can pass it to you.
Okay, all right, that's fine. He did not do that. Instead, Ron DeSantis became the warrior against the mandates and against Fauciism, not Trump.
Shut down Florida. So
Heather,
when
please.
Ron DeSantis
Heather, let him finish.
I'm not talking. I'm not okay. Listen, I'm not talking about shutting down Florida. I'm talking about in 2021, the vaccine mandates. When the mandates came, Ron DeSantis signed a law banning vaccine passports, which if he had not done that, down here, we would have been screwed in South Florida.
Okay,
They would have
Chris,
had
thanks,
vaccine
thanks,
passports
Chris.
everywhere.
Let me give the mic to Heather because everyone's trying to be good and putting their hands up. So Heather, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like one of your arguments, Chris, is that you're saying that, oh, because Trump was getting advice from all these different doctors, some of which were saying the vaccines were a good thing, is that you're saying that Trump hasn't come out and disavowed the vaccines and said, hey, I made a mistake, I never should have pushed them, blah blah blah.
Show me where
But
he
at the
said
same,
it,
no,
Heather.
but no, let me finish. At the
Show
same
me.
time, right? Like, when has DeSantis been like, you know what? I shut down my state and I didn't have that constitutional authority and I should have read the Constitution because Florida wasn't the bastion of freedom and the citadel of freedom that my campaign ad says it was. So what happened to being honest and admitting our mistakes and blah, 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 blah? Like, because like all the same stuff that you're sitting here giving Trump crap for, you could equally apply to DeSantis. And what I'm telling you is that strategically going into the general election, because there are so many people that genuinely believe the vaccines are legitimate because of the propaganda, which I think Dr. Malone called mass formation psychosis. It is a very real psychological thing that these people are like, if you say anything bad about these vaccines, they will stop talking to family members. Like, it's crazy. And so Trump is walking in that position where he's saying, look, like, those of us that know these vaccines are bad, we know. Right? Though there are people out there that don't know that.
Right. Can I answer what she said? Can I answer what she said?
She's basically saying they're both crooks. Trump
second.
and DeSantis
No,
are
I'm
both
not. I'm
crooks and
saying that
liars.
he's
Sorry, Heather, finish it. Summarize your point in 15 seconds. I'm going to go to Joe. Go ahead, Heather.
okay. I'm just saying Trump is not a doctor and he's getting all this medical information from all of these different types of doctors, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which he asked to come to some meetings with Dr. Fauci as well. So I genuinely believe he's doing the best that he can. And I think given the circumstances with the nation so divided on the issue, he's taking a safe approach by basically
Can I ask
saying,
Heather a question, please?
Let me go to.
You mind if I
guys,
ask Heather a
guys,
question?
Well, I'm going to go to Joe, then I'll give it to you for you, if that's all right. Joe.
Here's how the facts are. Heather, I assume you're in your 30s, right? And you just said Trump gave you the option to not have to take the vaccine.
Meaning he didn't sign an executive order mandating it for everyone in the country.
Right.
He chose not to be a tyrant and protect my freedom and my right to choose.
Right.
He
but
wasn't
you weren't
president at the time.
eligible, Heather, you weren't eligible for the vaccine until Biden was president. So was it Trump or was it Biden that gave you that right?
Well, I actually got COVID before
Apparently
there was
it
a
was
vaccine,
Biden.
and I took the hydroxychloroquine that Donald Trump was
No,
pushing,
don't
and it
change the
worked.
subject. Don't change the subject. You were not eligible for the vaccine until Biden was president. So Biden gave you that right, not Trump.
Oops.
Sure,
Oops.
sure. I guess you could say that, but it came out under
Yeah,
Trump.
I guess
the
I
vaccines
can
were
say that.
available under
I guess
Trump.
so.
All right,
The
let me go to
vaccines were
free.
available under Trump,
Heather.
and he could have
No,
decided
they
Heather,
under
weren't.
what
his
you're doing right now, like you're
Barely.
making
Okay, guys.
barely.
Sorry, I'm on to mute. I always forget the Trump DeSantis space is the most mute spaces. Free, go ahead, bro. Ask your question.
I appreciate it. And again, this is what I'm talking about. And I hope you will open up your eyes at some point, Heather, because this is why we call it a cult. Like, you are unwilling to hold this man accountable for anything. And I'll ask you again.
For what? Hold him accountable for what? Hold him accountable for what?
You won't hold him accountable for
Shooting chlorine in your veins, telling people to shoot chlorine in their veins.
For anything, for anything.
You never said that. Oh my God.
So Heather, here's the thing.
That is the most.
Hold on. Let me finish my question to Heather real quick, because she didn't answer this, and no one's answered this. When has Trump ever taken responsibility and said, you know what, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this better? When has he ever taken responsibility for anything?
I literally watched an interview yesterday where he said if he could go back, he would have made some different decisions.
I would love to see that, because in the whole time that
I will send it to you. I will send it to you.
The whole time that he was president, and in this entire off season, right? I've never seen him take like actual real responsibility for anything. Meanwhile, like, you guys keep talking about, well, DeSantis shut down for a short period of time, and then he regretted it, and he said he regretted it, and he opened back up again. That
Can you send me where he said he
it's in the
regretted shutting down?
jumbotron. It's in the jumbotron. Just hit that link right there. That CNN. I don't know why I didn't, but he said
He apologized.
he
Wait,
He apologized to Jillian for their arrest. I mean, he looked right at him and said, "I'm sorry this happened."
that is a sign of an actual like human being with real human emotions and like who is not a psychopath, man. Like there's something missing with Trump. There's something missing with him. And here's the deal. The COVID crisis, right? That was his moment for proving, right? That was his moment to prove himself. And he failed. So why not just acknowledge that he failed in that moment where we needed him to protect our
Okay.
liberties? We needed him to protect our liberties. It was a once in a
Yeah.
generation threat to our liberties.
can't-
And he went on the side of Fauci. He gave him accommodation on the way out the door.
No, he didn't. He was pushing monoclonal and
Sorry guys, I'm gonna come to you in a second to respond, but let me just go to Scott. Scott, thanks for joining us. I know you had some point you wanted to make, so go ahead. Scott Presler.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Well, I wanted to offer something a little bit controversial and off topic, and I want to preface this by saying that I'm not endorsing in the primary. But I know that DeSantis's camp has a boot camp that they're spending $100 million on, that they've already been knocking on doors in New Hampshire, in Iowa, and South Carolina. And I think part of the problem we may have on President Trump's team is I'm seeing a lot of people change their voter registration from Republican to independent. And in states like Pennsylvania, Florida, New York, California, you have to be registered as a Republican to vote in the Republican presidential primary. And then furthermore, one last thing I want to offer is DeSantis, I think, is going to do better than we think he is from these polls. Because, for example, I know DeSantis's team, they're going to be ballot harvesting. They're going to be voting early. They're going to be voting by mail. And I think it's a very real possibility that Team Trump must consider that if something happens like it did in Arizona in 2022, that when the majority of President Trump's supporters are going to vote on election day, it's a real possibility that there could be shenanigans, that if DeSantis supporters have already locked in their votes and something goes wrong on election day, you could very well see Governor DeSantis receive more delegates than the polls are currently showing at this moment. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Trump will come out and say that the election was rigged. That's what he's going to do. He's just going to say the election was rigged. He can't lose.
Because
He's the best.
that's what losers do, right? Losers make excuses. And
Wait,
that's
can I
go
have
ahead.
Yeah, Chief, go ahead. I know you've waited for a while. Go ahead, Chief.
on time? So to answer Free's question about this whole COVID thing, this is a big thing for both sides that I think just has to be put straight. Both sides had problems. Okay, I know for a fact as probably the only person on this panel who was actually let go because I didn't get the vaccine. As everybody here, I understand the issue of mandates. I understand it very well. I wish that there would have been, they wouldn't have this mandate. I wish the private companies wouldn't be doing these mandates. When I got released from the company because of a vaccine mandate, I looked for places to go in Florida because I thought Florida would be the place to go where I could go find a place that a company wouldn't mandate vaccines for my industry. I looked, and guess what? They still have the mandates in Florida for private companies. So a lot of private companies have these mandates. They have people required to get the jab and wear masks to work and be employed there. So let's be quite clear, okay? Both sides did bad. No one did great on COVID. Everybody had problems. I wish that we wouldn't have this thing, this whole warp speed thing. And I also wish that DeSantis wouldn't have locked out at some point. I wish he would have done stuff too. Both sides had bad problems. No one was perfect, and people out there are trying to make this illusion about cultists or whatever. But quite simply, I call things I see them. Trump did bad on something like COVID, and DeSantis did the same thing as well. Nobody's perfect, and to say and to pretend as if someone's a hero in all this, in reality, everybody was terrible. Okay, it was terrible. COVID all was a bad thing. In general election terms, our voters don't care about COVID-19 in general election wise. The answer is no, unfortunately. I think people should be asking about the long-term consequences about COVID, but they're not going to be caring about. They're caring about the economy. They're caring about things that hurt their pocketbook and how much to take home. They're caring about inflation. They're caring about immigration and a variety of other issues. So if we're going to be talking about general election terms and how to look as a Republican candidate to beat Biden and think realistically speaking, not cult speaking, how to win a general election, let's focus on those issues. Let's hammer the economy, focus on these big issues. Social conservatism for sure is a big one I want to push as well. And guess what? We should go and take that mentality, win in 2024, and not be delusioned by this grand talk about who's better at COVID, this person or that person, and just go and there's never ending squabble here. It's like ridiculous. As someone who is been directly impacted by these mandates, I would tell you, DeSantis was not perfect. Trump wasn't perfect either. So to call it as a cultist talk, it's just ridiculous. It's really a lie. So if we could be realistically speaking here and talk human to human, that'd be great. It'd be more productive than calling people cultists all day, and lying about that part.
Chief, with all due respect, I live in that cult for 4 years. It's a cult, and I could call it a
Chief
cult. Just like
Rumster.
you have experience, I'm telling you, it was a cult, and that's why they respond the way they respond, because the mega base is a cult.
Wait,
Well, literally, all of you who are
Where were
calling
you
us
working?
a
Oh
cult.
God, she's talking again. Where were you working, Chief Trumpster? Where were you working at?
I'm in STEM. So a lot of these big Fortune 500 companies. I won't get too much details about what I do. However, when I got released from my job, unfortunately, I was looking for places to do work. I'm very blessed. I found a place that doesn't have a mask or a jab requirement. So I was very fortunate. I know people who were not as fortunate, and so I buckled for this. And I looked in Florida. I looked at places that do what I do. I looked and looked and looked. I couldn't find any place. I did interview this place. I thought that, I can ask the question. The answer is they still said you need to have at the time, you need to have the jab and the mask. But the answer to the last question about the whole cultist space thing. No, because I call Trump out when he does bad things. I call people out when they do bad things. I disagree with Trump on some issues. I make the point very clear. I'm not a fan of McCarthy. I'm not a fan of some people he has. I'm not a fan of some things. And I call it out and I say it as it is. If I were a cultist, I would say everything's great and all of that. But I call things as I see them.
Do you agree that Cuomo did a
Chief,
better job?
Chief, I don't
Trump
disagree that
Cuomo
you're
did a
not
better
a
job
cult.
than DeSantis?
I'm talking about people like Heather and Sebastian that are in the
Dude,
cult.
I'm not a cultist, okay?
Oh, God,
one of the things that I don't agree with Trump on was the bump stock ban, right? Because at the end of the day, the whole reason I support President Trump is because I'm a constitutionalist, right? So if you're gonna vote for a president, you need to vote for a president that protects your constitutional
You
rights.
said we should throw
When
out
you
the
take
Constitution.
COVID,
You just said he
when
took
you
away
take
bump
COVID,
stocks.
for example, right? There's
But
two
wait,
types.
with
There's
the
two
Second
types.
Amendment,
Shut up,
Trump
Chris.
said take the
There's
guns
two
first
types.
and then ask questions
There's
later. That's not
two types.
constitutional.
There's two types of leaders when it comes to COVID. There were the people that signed executive orders, right, and violated my
And
constitutional
the people
rights.
that lied
And
to
then
the
there's
American
people
people.
that gave, like in President Trump's case, he left it up to the states. He protected rights
No, he
by
didn't. It was
giving
his.
the
He said it was
sovereignty of the
his.
states. He didn't
He said it
enforce
was his
a nationwide
call. Heather,
mandate.
you're lying. You are lying again. He said it was
No,
his
I'm
call
not.
and his call only. I have the receipt. I'll put it in the jumbotron. This
He
whole thing,
left it
Trump
up.
left.
Guidelines
Please,
and executive
you
orders are two different things. Someone
he
can
said that
recommend
it's
something,
his
but if you're
call,
free not to
period.
follow their recommendation, that's called you still have your rights.
Hey, so
There's
can
a
I
big
can I
difference
just can I
between
just
Okay,
guidelines
okay,
and
okay, okay,
executive
stop
okay,
orders.
talking for 2 seconds?
Guys, please let Heather finish her point, and then we'll
He's
come
been
to your point.
talking for
No,
like
this
40
is
minutes.
what they do is they talk over you when you're
No, that's
making valid
I mean, Heather,
points because
Heather. I'm gonna come to you, but let's be clear. You've done the same. You literally interrupted so many people. Like, it's fine. Everyone's been doing it, but let's not pretend one side did it more than the other. Everybody's been on the interruptions. That's
no,
why I've
I
had to mute like
interrupted
100
when
times.
Lev called me a cultist, and I said I'm a
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
call it.
I'm
I
gonna,
call
I'm
it
gonna
like
let you
I see it,
respond.
Heather.
I'm
I
Can I
call it
ask
like I
Chief
see it.
Trumpster a
So
question? I want to ask
Heather, I'm
Chief
gonna let you
Trumpster a
respond,
question.
but can you see, like, even you interrupted me? Like, I'm not bothered, but you can't be complaining about other people interrupting when you do it yourself. And I'm not saying you're only doing it. I'm saying everybody's been doing it on the stage. I've had to mute more times today than any other time. But anyway,
She's like
go ahead, Heather.
she's like a filler buster. She
Heather,
just takes
Heather,
over and talks the whole time.
Heather, let Heather finish. Heather, finish your point.
No, I'm just finishing my point is that regardless of who you support, going into if you're a true conservative, you should be going into every single election saying who's the candidate that is going to most likely protect my constitutional rights and not waver. And unfortunately, I don't think Ron DeSantis has ever read the Constitution because nowhere in it does it say you can sit from your gubernatorial chair and shut down people's ability to work or gather in groups or beaches or all of those other things. So unfortunately, my loyalty lies with President Trump because I feel like he is the best case scenario moving forward in making America
Trump wants
a
to get
country
rid
that
of the
is led by our
Constitution, Heather.
Constitution.
Trump wants to get rid
He
of the
recommended
Constitution,
the whole
Heather.
country shut down.
I'm getting ready to go.
It came from Trump's office.
Heather,
That's
A
where the order to shut down came from. It
recommendation
came
is
from
not
Trump's
an
office.
executive order. It's a
It was his who
recommendation.
declared
Heather,
a state of
Who
emergency.
cares?
didn't
He
he call to
recommended it.
terminate the
He
Constitution?
recommended it.
And then the governors
Whoa,
could
Heather,
then recommend it to
don't
their
duck the
people.
question. Didn't he call to terminate the Constitution? Since you're a constitutionalist, How do you feel about President Trump saying he wanted to terminate?
No, so let me answer that question. So to be fair, what he was saying is that the Constitution has been so desecrated already that it's pretty much our own government is not following the
So he
Constitution.
wants to.
That was the point he
But he
was
said
making.
no. Let's not put words in his mouth.
No, that's
He
exactly
called to
the point
he
of it.
called to
That's the point of it.
Heather. Let's be real.
That's the
This
point of it.
is what I'm talking about. Like, you don't want to get pinned down on these things that he.
So do you support the Constitution, Kareem?
I'll
Do you
answer that.
support it?
I'll answer that. But let me just finish my point. He says he wants to terminate the Constitution. Instead of you saying, you know what, I'm a constitutionalist. That's more important to me than the president. And
Context
wait, hold on.
matters.
Let me just finish.
You
Let me
do
just
not
finish.
take
Let me finish,
context.
Heather. Instead of saying, yo,
It's honestly, it's deceptive to not
Heather,
explain the full
Heather,
context of things.
Heather,
Like when people like
in
Lev
what
are saying he
context,
was telling people to
Heather,
inject
in what context
freaking
for a
bleach.
Cultists in full effect.
let me
Like
finish my
context
statement, Heather.
matters.
In what
Context
context
Can we
is
let
it
him talk?
okay
Can we let
for
him talk?
someone who wants to be president of the United States to say that they want to terminate the Constitution? What context could possibly make that okay? When we want to protect.
Free, you're picking and choosing what he said.
Yeah, that's
the
a pretty big
context
thing.
was
Answer
not
his
about
question, though.
terminating the Constitution. He was referring to the Constitution being terminated by our ruling regime.
Let's read
Don't
it.
just pick the freaking words. No, you read
No,
it. Maybe you didn't understand what he was saying. You have a
What about him
comprehension
saying
problem.
take the guns first? He said take
Maybe
the guns
you have a
first and
comprehension
then ask later.
problem.
He said
Maybe you
take
have
the
a
guns first
free.
and then ask later. Why did Trump say take the guns first?
Free. Maybe you have a
You're
comprehension
not going to answer me.
problem.
You're not going to
Literally,
answer.
you have labeled 75 million people.
Look, like
cultists.
I don't support anybody that wants to take guns, so I have no
Well,
problem
Trump,
saying.
he said it. He said it.
Okay,
Trump
well
said
then
it.
I'll
read
sit
to you
here
what
and
Trump
say I
said. Trump
disagree
said a
with him,
massive
and I'll go
fraud
toe
of
to
this
toe
type
with him
and
on gun
magnitude
rights.
allows for the.
I mean, like, I don't know what you want. Like, I'll go toe to toe with Trump or anyone on gun rights. Like, I'm like a dog and a bone. Like,
He
Second
said
Amendment or bust.
termination of all
I
rules,
already told you that
regulations.
I don't agree with him on the bump stock ban.
He said termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution.
Could I hop in
Go
here?
ahead. No, guys, let's go for free. Free, go ahead. Finish your point.
Yeah, he called for the termination of all rules and articles, even those found in the Constitution. That's what he said. That came out of his. So, on the one hand, you're saying that you're a constitutionalist. On the other hand, you won't rebuke the man for saying that, and won't say that he's disqualified from office for A, saying that he would terminate the Constitution, and for B, let's just go back to when he actually had a moment in COVID. He terminated the Constitution, man. He told us that we had to stay home. And when Brian Kemp wanted to reopen, he rebuked Brian Kemp for reopening. When he posted tweets.
South Dakota never
Let
shut
me
down.
finish my statement. He posted tweets saying that Sweden shouldn't have stayed open, right? He got in front of the American people and said maybe we shouldn't shake hands anymore. Maybe we need to do away with shaking hands. This man is not qualified to be president of the United States. And if you're a constitutionalist and you don't have a problem with any of that, then you're not. I don't know what constitution you're reading. Like, I don't know.
Well, was that before or after Ron DeSantis told Trump to quarantine the tri-state area? I'm confused. Did Trump shut down those areas in Florida in June when Ron DeSantis closed again? This is what they're left with. He's basically an MSNBC anchor.
No.
It didn't work for 5 years. We're all cultists now. We're all crazy. It worked for the left. Try it. It's going to work good for you.
Okay,
I mean, people get to know DeSantis. They don't like it.
There's a difference between DeSantis and Trump. DeSantis makes a move that he later on says, you know what, this is not a good move. He says, you know what, I apologize, and I'm turning course.
Yeah, and Trump never shut them down. He recommended it. I remember him saying, open up by Easter. They said, God forbid. I remember him campaigning. We need to open the schools. They called him a bloody monster. That was at the same time DeSantis was getting
fired. And by the way, you can yell as loud as you want, but
it's fine because you don't give any context and you give mistruths. You go, Trump said this. Let's talk about actions.
Do not.
You care about
this is
vaccines. It's still going on in Florida.
Free.
It's not about being afraid. It's just you're a liar. You're not truthful. That's why
I'm gonna land my plane.
You're running.
This is.
Guys, there's like 10 people talking. Prodigal, go ahead.
Let me land my plane.
The campaign's slimy from front to back. They're backed by all neocons. All the people who left. At least Trump is not bought this time around. Regardless of whatever it was, I don't believe he was.
Who's back?
This is a slimy.
Right, guys, next person to interrupt, I'm just going to drop them because it's literally like I just said, let Prodigal talk, and like 5 DeSantis people just start talking at the same time. Let Prodigal finish his point, and then I'm going to go to Free or Chris to respond. You guys can decide between you, one of you to respond, not both of you at the same time. Go ahead, Prodigal.
This is a slimy campaign, and all you need to know is
Prodigal, it mutes automatically after a few seconds, so just go ahead again. Unmute Prodigal.
My bad.
It's
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I like DeSantis. The funny thing is, Free talking to me like I like DeSantis. The reality of the matter is, even though I want Trump to win the primary, I am upset at how poor DeSantis has done. And this just lends more weight to, is he even equipped for it? He can't even handle a national campaign in a primary with the whole party and establishment backing him. Like, let's be real. And the reality matters, this is just so slimy that how it's being run and for how they do revisionist history. Oh, yeah, Trump shut him down. Did he send in the COVID shock troopers to shut down Kristi Noem in her state? 7 states never closed. So when they tell you Ron DeSantis was open and was the leader, that's a lie. When Trump wanted to stay open, DeSantis was begging him to close the tri-state. And Free's laughing because he's not in the tri-state. And I was. And we were shut down. And DeSantis helped push that panic and pandemonium at that time. And unlike him, we remember very well who shut us down. This is the thing. They're giving a left a pass. We know our governors. We know our city mayors. We know our health commissioners. And he's saying, no, Trump kept it down. When you can literally look at the articles, you just have to put Trump wants to open up. It'll come up in a stream. And he goes, oh, he let Fauci do it. He doesn't even know the mechanisms. He doesn't have complete control. It goes through the NIH. Francis would have had done it. Then he could appeal it to the board. He would have been in power. This is at a time after the Russiagate hoax and the Ukraine-gate hoax, which were both fake now, were occurring. And this guy thinks Trump had the cachet to push away a guy on GQ and that the left and the right were embracing. I want a shot every 6 months to say, no, listen to me when half the country hated him. The reality matter, most of the DeSantis people are in it for money, come late lease, or they're not equipped for the struggle ahead. And that's it. And I'll end on that. Everybody have a good night.
All right, can I respond to that real quickly? By the way, I want everyone to take a look at the Jumbotron. Because since you're saying that, well, DeSantis closed down, he did. Okay, let's just go with Trump's own words, which I posted to the Jumbotron. He's telling everyone that you guys didn't close, right? So it wasn't a long enough closing down for Trump to now turn around and say, like, oh my gosh, they shut down. No. He went all around the country, making Florida the model for a state that didn't close. Here's the problem that you have, man. You just said it out of your own mouth. Trump didn't have the smarts or the cachet or the intelligence, and he didn't know what to do. And okay, well,
that's
then
not what I said. I'm talking about context.
Maybe he should stay as a game show host and not be president of the United States, because
then DeSantis wouldn't be governor of Florida. You should be kissing his ass.
I didn't cut you off, Playboy.
You'd be run by a closeted homosexual alleged meth head. Allegedly. That's being governor.
I thought you
should kiss
Trump's
ass.
Going to drop people who interrupt.
Hey, he lost. Yeah, Richard Nixon lost. Andrew Jackson lost. Tell them not to run.
But I didn't interrupt.
You don't care about 2020. You never did. You wanted to turn the page.
Let's go back
Listen,
to it.
for a lot of us, it's frozen in time. It's never going to end. But push this in.
You just got done saying that the man didn't know what to do. On the other hand, I see Ron DeSantis.
I didn't say that. What are you talking about? You're putting words in my mouth. I said he didn't have the authority to fire Fauci. That was through Francis. It would have been appealed. He would have been frozen in place. And this is at a time he just faced an impeachment.
Okay.
So what are you talking
about? This is the most helpless president of the United States that has ever existed. No president of the United States.
The most transformational president that every
guys,
and big tech and phonies in his party. He's still winning.
You can drop somebody if they interrupted, right? Bro, my man interrupted me like.
1 second, guys. Free. Go ahead, finish your point. Prodigal, let him finish his point. Don't
yes, please.
You just come on so you don't realize.
I appreciate it. Listen, at the end of the day, you have the most helpless president of the United States, the most ineffective. When push came to shove, he didn't know what to do. He didn't have the cachet. They lied to him. Meanwhile, DeSantis brings in Dr. Ladapo, right? Like, he actually makes good hires who err on the side of protecting our freedoms versus selling us out. Trump gives Fauci a presidential commendation on the way out the door. DeSantis brings in Dr. Ladapo. That's all you need to hear, everybody. At the end of the day, this is a chief executive position, and it's all about who you hire. Trump makes terrible hires. He makes terrible decisions. DeSantis makes great decisions. And when he does make a bad decision, he corrects course.
Well, Trump sort of hired DeSantis, no? Was that a good hire when he helped him win the governorship or no?
I think it was smart on his part.
That was my fault. DeSantis came begging on his knees.
Who was that? Is that Lev? But listen,
This is like the biggest DeSantis rally.
Here's the
is
thing.
this
Here's the
Twitter
thing.
space.
I
There's 5
respect.
of them
I
in here,
respect.
and they're all
At
loving
the end
it.
of the day, I respect results. Right? DeSantis wanted
So
to
do
win.
better. You're getting killed in the primary. I do too.
Hold on. I respect results. All right. So let's talk about 2018. DeSantis wanted to win. He did what he needed to do to win, and guess what? He won. We look at COVID. When we look at the hires that he made, Dr. Ladapo, again, he made a good hire. He made good decisions. He course corrected when he needed to. He erred on the side of freedom, while Trump is, I'm going to use your own words, did not have the cachet. He did not have the
with
cachet.
the public.
He
Yeah,
didn't know
that's
what he was
correct.
doing.
And that respect, he did it. Yeah, after being assaulted by the alphabet agencies,
Well, he's
them trying to
disqualified.
imprison
I'm sorry.
everybody he was associated with and his supporters. Yeah, half the country still believes the Russiagate stuff. Half the country still believes Trump is in Ukraine. A lot of DeSantis supporters think the elections are great. They're very secure. So it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of dumb people who think they're smart.
Out of your own words, he didn't have the cachet.
He's not a doctor.
That's the new slogan. That's the new.
Yeah, that's correct. Look at the polling. They wanted to lock up 80% of people. 80% of people were voting to lock people up, take away their kids. Do you not remember what was occurring?
Saying it louder don't make it true. Listen, at the
it
end
is
of the
true.
day,
Go look at the AP polls. Just saying it is, it doesn't make it not. I think I know the citations better than you.
At the end of the day,
they never seen DeSantis more. He's never spent more money, and they like him less. His polling is tanky. You got to put a picture of him next to Obama, the one person who helped destroy this country and lead us to this path. It's great, man. It's great. I trust your judgment.
Hey, man, take a deep breath, man. How old are you?
This is so ridiculous. This entire nature of this conversation. We all fixated on COVID. And the mistakes that both of them made during COVID, which was a once in a century issue, and you're all sitting here fixating when they both made mistakes. Neither of them own their mistakes, because in politics nobody ever owns their mistakes because it's bad politics. To the extent I let you land your plane and the flight from Malaysia came in before you. Okay, so let me just get a minute here.
Listen, I don't know who's talking, by the way. I don't know who's talking.
Listen.
Let me just finish this point.
Following
The extent that DeSantis accepted responsibility was that he was blaming Trump for misleading him. He's like, I'm sorry, I listened to Trump. That's not accepting responsibility. That's just playing politics, same as usual. So both of them made mistakes in COVID. Neither of them really gave issue any sort of apology for it, and none of us should be sitting here fixating on it because it was once in a century type of crisis that our grandchildren may never have to hear about. So, and our children and grandchildren will never face such a thing as far as this rapidly growing crisis. What we need to actually fixate on is who can win and who actually has shown an ability to win.
Following, so do you give the same thing to the left? So did the left make the mistake also?
Rights. Okay, can I jump in?
Right, let me just ask a question. 1 second, Shukri. Let me ask Chris. Chris, could you get your hand up as well? Which is unusual for you, so I have to go to you. Right, so Chris, question is, Lev said something earlier. I asked him the question, but I want to ask you it. Lev is making the argument that DeSantis is basically, his policies, his views are sold to the highest bidder. He talked about cannabis, and he completely took a U-turn just to get an endorsement from Lev and Trump. So, I mean, how can you trust a guy who can be bought on every single issue, Chris?
That is not the Ron DeSantis I know. The Ron DeSantis I know, I started out by protesting at his house to get these mask mandates lifted, by defying COVID orders. And I've watched DeSantis over these 3 years, and he has come through on everything he said he would. And a lot of the Trump supporters, I get it. They don't want to talk about COVID. Like, it's no big deal. Move on. I get why that they want to, because this is what made Ron DeSantis popular. Why is he popular? All these guys saying, oh, he locked down everything, da-da-da-da-da. First of all, Florida's nothing like South Dakota. And Kristi Noem did want to lock down. Her legislator kept her from doing it. So please stop with saying.
But how could they have Trump controlled that? That's my point. I'm saying you guys are lying.
Can I finish? Can I finish, please?
Try not to.
All right, can I finish?
To admit Trump didn't have the power. I appreciate it.
Can I finish what I'm saying? Look, DeSantis signed permanent protections against vaccine mandates, forced masking. He banned a central bank digital currency. He signed a law against the WHO pandemic treaty. Trump hangs out with Klaus Schwab, by the way. He banned gain of function research in Florida. He signed the Protection of Medical Conscience Act. So you won't have this remdesivir CDC protocol being shoved down the throats in people's hospitals, in hospitals. This stuff matters. We are in the recession or the having the inflation we're having now because of Donald Trump signing that CARES Act. Look, a lot of us were willing to go along with the 2 weeks to slow the spread. I even went along with it a little bit, but our debt went up to $28 trillion when Trump signed the CARES Act. This is what set off everything that we have today. And then he did the 30 days to slow the spread. DeSantis, to try to say that he was a lockdowner is insane.
I'm not. I agree with the other speaker who says it's a losing
Can I finish, please? Solomon, can I have just like a
Someone
couple
else
minutes?
talk, please?
Yeah,
All right.
let Chris finish. Let Chris finish, man.
Okay, I'll land it. But DeSantis saved my livelihood. And I'm not paid for him, by the way. And I really get tired of people saying that because it's not true. And they want to discredit me by saying that I'm paid by
I don't even
Ron
know who you are, so I'm not insulting you.
Oh, I'm not saying you are, but people say that I'm paid by Ron DeSantis. I'm not. But he saved my wife and I's careers. They were trying to smother us out of business down here. They wanted it like California and South Florida and DeSantis in September. It took them a little while. But after we did our Target protest, where I went into Target and we took off our masks to "We're Not Gonna Take It" by Twisted Sister. That was my wife's idea to do that. And it got like 32 million views and went everywhere. Then we took the fight up to his mansion and said, look, you are saying that Florida is open everywhere, which it is. Most of Florida stayed open. Most of the beaches stayed open. All of DeSantis's jurisdiction stayed open, which is the whole state. But down here, they have this thing called home rule where they were the Broward government and the Miami government. By the way, it was Carlos Gimenez, who Trump endorsed for Congress, who as Miami mayor was the one having people arrested for going on the beach. And he's a Trump guy. DeSantis stood up to these guys, and it just befuddles me that I've got people that I knew that we protested these things together. I chased DeSantis all over the state until he finally said, fine, I'll just let him into my press conferences, whatever, saying unmask the kids. And when he took on the teachers unions, and when he removed those Broward school board members, this is another thing DeSantis did. He just removed a board of people overseeing the Miami highways and put in his own board, just like he did with Disney, to run it more efficiently. He is badass. He comes in.
Yeah, my favorite was the COVID checkpoints on those highways.
Please, look.
All right.
Why people couldn't get into the keys, I don't know. People couldn't get into the keys.
Oh
for
my
a
God,
while.
Chris! I didn't let anyone interrupt, but you really.
Okay. Let me land it right now.
Thank
you, Suleiman.
No, I'll let you land about. No, let me go to somebody else.
I appreciate you,
I got
Suleiman.
your point. No, I'm going to come back to you, but just give somebody else a chance as well.
All right.
Shukri, go ahead. What do you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. First, let me address free. How Christian of you to label 75 million Americans cultists. And as far as DeSantis is concerned, you have this hard on for him, but he's married, happily married. Okay. Anyway,
your side is the pro LGBT side.
Anyway. I feel like the lone sober person in the room with 50 other drunk or drug people. Is everyone really that out of touch? I mean, seriously, how can the MAGA king or the establishment puppet DeSantis beat election fraud? It's almost seriously as if the elections of 2020 and 2022 never happened.
Yeah, their supporters don't care.
Hold on a second. Don't interrupt, please. I mean, right now, currently, 55% of likely voters believe that cheating will determine the outcome of the 2024 election. As far as the Rhino Rona, our RNC chair has done nothing to combat or correct these fraud in elections. Even Trump, who to this day refused to deny election fraud in 2020, acts and speaks as if there is no concern about fraud in 2024. I mean, seriously, we can all sit
Because he
here
knows there was
argue.
no fraud
Hold on
there.
a
That's
second.
life.
Excuse me. You had the mic all day long. Let me finish my point, please. Do not interrupt me. We can all sit here and go at it at each other, but the fact remains that defeating election fraud and talking about it hourly should be the priority of every Republican Party, not just this the establishment GOP. I'll land there.
Right, thank you. Let me go to Dr. Maria. Go ahead, Dr. Maria.
Hi, I'm going to touch up on a couple of points because a lot of things have been said since I first sent in my request. Thank you for having me. About Fauci, somebody said that he couldn't fire Fauci. Okay, well, he couldn't fire him, but you know that Trump was the one that actually created this White House COVID task force. He could have actually gotten Fauci out of there if he wanted to, but he decided not to. Again, because of the fact that Trump, somebody mentioned here, he was under some type, the leftists going after him, the media, and he didn't want any more problems. He just wanted to follow along. That's a problem with
Americans
Trump.
didn't support it. It was
Okay,
popular at the time, and I hate it.
Can I speak, please?
Yeah, but you're ignoring the polling. You had literally a
interrupt
majority
Prodigal.
of
That's not
Democrats, like
nice.
70%,
Prodigal,
wanted
that
to
isn't
take away
very nice,
kids,
man.
and you're
Don't
saying
interrupt.
no.
You gotta mute the cultist.
Prodigal, don't
Solomon, you gotta
interrupt.
One
mute the
second,
cultist.
guys. Let Dr. Maria finish her point. Go ahead, Dr. Maria.
I'm going to touch up on all the points, and then you guys could debate me all you want, okay?
Hey,
All right.
try and summarize them rather than go through every point, but yeah, just go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So as far as the vaccine goes, I haven't seen Trump say absolutely anything about, there's some problems with the vaccine. We need to look at this.
Are they still giving it out in Florida? Are they still giving it out in Florida? I'm curious because you
As
can use this
opposed-
line.
One
Can you
person
mute the
finish
cultist?
without
Let her
interrupting.
finish. Let her finish
Prodigal,
talking.
let her finish, bro. Go ahead.
Because it's
Dr. Maria.
bullshit. That's what it is. I'm out of
Mute the
here.
cultist.
Good luck
Mute
at the
the
poll.
cultist.
Take your
Mute
ball
the
and go home,
cultist.
Prodigal.
All right. Go ahead, Dr. Maria. Go ahead.
Okay, as opposed to DeSantis, who actually got a roundtable of individuals who are experts and they all think differently. People who thought differently from him, people who were debating the pros and cons. He actually did that. He actually has asked for a grand jury in Florida to actually look at the vaccine and to hold the CDC and to hold the vaccine makers responsible if they lied to the public. He actually wants to have an investigation. So he is at least doing something about it, and Trump refuses to do absolutely anything regarding that. Now, as far as
Dr. Maria,
closing,
let me one
uh-huh.
second. I think
Yes.
we'll just go at one point at a time rather than like there's a lot of people want to jump.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Sure.
You can-
I'll turn on my
I'll-
microphone. Whoever wants to debate that.
Yeah.
Wait,
Lisa,
can I respond to
let
that?
me one second. Let me go.
No, it's a legitimate point, Suleiman, I swear.
Okay, can you do it in like 30
Yeah,
seconds?
I'm still trying to respond to something that was brought up.
I've heard people bring up
speeches
that
ago.
Ron DeSantis asked the grand jury to investigate the vaccines. So my point is, why then couldn't he also ask a grand jury to investigate the unconstitutional raid on Mar-a-Lago? End point.
Right, let me go to
Spoke like a true
Lisa.
cultist.
Let me go to guys. We don't need to do this, right? Lisa, go ahead.
Everybody forgets, and Prodigal was making a really good point that everybody forgets what the public opinion was there. For those that believe that he lost the election and there was no interference of any kind, even media for that matter, people forget that even conservatives were saying if he would just have given in on the mask thing, if he just would have put a mask on, he would have won the election. Everybody forgets that public opinion, even the House of Representatives, you're acting like he signed this bill and it was his legislation, the CARES Act. You forget that the House overwhelmingly voted for that. Not to mention DeSantis's congressional record, especially from when I worked there with him, is abysmal. I mean, he's considered a purple conservative. He's not even that Republican. Look at where all his money's coming from. Look at the things he voted for. Look up his congressional record. If you look on govtrack.com, okay, his ideology score is abysmal, absolutely atrocious. So you can say that oh, he didn't deliver on COVID, but it's a non sequitur. Nobody knew how to handle that. I had furthest right voting Republican members of Congress saying they were going to sign that bill because they didn't want to leave their congressional districts high and dry after, so many people were shut down. Like, it was a very different atmosphere. I worked in a far right Republican office at the time, and everybody in there but me and one other person got vaccinated. Like, everybody seemed to be afraid of the virus, and his public opinion was down. Everybody that I know said if he just would have put the mask on, if he just would have seemed more sympathetic, he wouldn't have lost the election. So I don't know where you're going with this stupid thing, but if you look at DeSantis' congressional record, it sucks. And you're forgetting that the reason he's getting everything through and getting everything done down in Florida is because he's got a full-blown Republican legislature that's further right than he is. That's all.
Hey, Lee,
Can I respond to that? Because I didn't
Guys. 1 second. Let's go to Joe, because Joe was
Tim
upset.
Pool still having a meltdown over the
Yeah, I wanted to.
First of all, it's not Tim Pool that was my boss at the time. It was Randy Weber, number one.
Is little Timmy with his beanie still having
Chris, can I
meltdowns over
finally-
those
Not relevant, Chris.
over the AI images?
Let me just say one thing. I offered free to come on Tim Pool's show and debate this with Gavin Wax, but he declined because he will only do it in Twitter Spaces because he doesn't want a real audience. I just want to put that out there.
I don't really care about Tim Pool.
What are you talking about with DeSantis' record?
Since you wanted to call me out about not debating the guy that was arrested for sexual assault.
Can I please debate since he called on me free? Can
Go
I
ahead,
please bring up a point that was brought up like a half hour ago already? DeSantis takes money from lobbyists, right? True. I believe that. Trump said that Saudi Arabia was responsible for 9/11, and we know they killed an American, and they gave a donation to get Ivanka into WEF and gave Jared $2 billion, which helped the Trump's golf course. So who do you want your politician to take their money from? Saudi Arabia and in international entities, and be granted patents from China and things like that? Or do you want them to take from lobbyists? Pick. I don't know which one's worse.
Neither, Joe. Neither. They shouldn't take
Right,
it from
that's
neither
what I'm
one of them.
By the way, I'm on GovTrack right now. DeSantis is
I just put it up in his
very
ideology scores up in
extremely
the thing.
far right on GovTrack.
No, he's not.
I
just put it in the Jumbotron.
I'll go ahead and post what I'm seeing here. But here's the problem that you have. Number one, on the Tim Pool thing, Tim Pool made his position clear as to who he's supporting in this race. That would be dumb of me to get on the Tim Pool.
He's not even doing it. It would be you and Gavin debating on the new show.
All right. Well, we already did that and already wiped the floor with him. So we're gonna keep it moving. All right. So let's continue real quick though. Let's continue real quick. Again, you continue to make excuses for Trump, right? There was only one person that sits behind the Resolute desk at a time. Only one. And I demand excellence out of that person. You don't have the same standards that I have. I get that. But that man was sitting behind the Resolute desk. He's in a small club of people called President of the United States. I expect him to get it right, and I expect if he makes a mistake, if it's the fog of war, for him to course correct very quickly. I want results. You seem to want to give him a pass. He was the President of the United States. He should have protected our freedoms. He shouldn't have done what he did with the CARES Act. He shouldn't have elevated Fauci. He should have demolished Fauci. As a matter of fact, why did DeSantis bring in Dr. Ladapo as the Surgeon General of Florida? Why didn't Trump have the foresight to bring somebody like that up to the federal level? Like, why didn't he have that foresight? Again, you guys can make all the excuses you want. The average American is not falling for the BS anymore, man. We want results. They're not going to sit on Twitter Spaces with us. They're not even on Twitter. All they care about at the end of the day was, man, that man Trump was in office and my business was shut down. And the economy is screwed up because of bills that he signed. And we've got inflation because of bills that he signed.
That is such bullshit. I'm sorry. People like you, honest to God, make me sick.
Hey, man, just take a deep breath. You're going to be okay.
And lie
it's going to be okay.
To 10,000 people in this space. Like, you seriously have no freaking soul.
When the reaction is like that, then I hit the mark.
You have no soul. You have no soul to sit up here and blatantly lie through your teeth.
What am I lying about, Heather?
as much as 90% of the swamp down in
No,
DC.
tell me what I'm
for you to
lying
sit
about.
up
Let's
here
talk
and spit
facts.
these lies
Let's talk
at
facts.
one of the.
What am I lying
Heather,
about?
you
If
need
you want
to,
to talk facts, I
Heather,
will spit some facts. Let's
go on
talk
then.
about Trump's accomplishments, and I'll go down the list.
So what did I lie about? Since you said I have no
What do you
soul,
mean
what did I
that
lie
that
about?
he shut down and that he was a detriment to our economy? We
Absolutely.
have the best freaking economy that we ever had under
No,
Trump.
that's right. No, that's right now.
You're
That's right now.
you're
Actually,
starting
that's right now.
you're
Actually,
talking about the first chapter of the book, and you're not reading the rest of the book, and that's what we call foolish.
Oh my God!
So here's the
you
problem.
lie through your
Here's the
teeth. You're like a
problem.
dirty politician.
Here's the problem.
You're literally like a dirty politician.
Again, you can try to speak over me all you want, but he said it himself. He said we had the best economy, and then I shut it down. He said he shut it down.
We did. People felt it.
Okay.
People felt it in their 401ks. They felt it. Like my dad, when he got his care through the VA, because of Trump allowing them to go out network, they got better care. Our military, our veterans that gave and risked their lives for
But
this
then he
country,
shut it down.
they got better care.
But then he shut it down.
Opportunity zones that allowed for building in
And
distressed
then he
areas of
shut
our
it down.
that helped
You
build
want
the
to know what
economy
that
in those
sounds like?
areas. I mean,
That's like
you guys keep
that's like the
talking over
Dallas
me when I
Cowboys
actually
are
try to
up by
talk about his
that's like
accomplishments.
the
Heather,
Dallas
they shut
Cowboys
it
are
down.
up by
Losers.
3
True
touchdowns.
losers. Guess
You
what?
can-
You're gonna lose again.
Look
And guess what
how
happens?
This
yo,
isn't really
look how
productive
emotional
now.
you're getting, Karen.
Stroking Trump's
Guys, there's like 5 people talking again. Try your best. I know it's tough. Let's go for Dr. Maria. Go ahead.
Lisa, I think she's the one that said about his score. Ron DeSantis's lifetime score with American Conservative Union is 99.1%.
Dude,
He's
you
extremely
can't count that.
conservative.
You can't
He's
count
extremely
that.
conservative. Okay, he's extremely conservative. All right, so that was his lifetime score when he was in Congress. Something else, DeSantis did not have a supermajority when he started in 2018. He had a regular majority in the House and Senate, just like Trump had during his first 2 years. He had a majority, and a lot of the policies that he's talking about now and that he's touting that he's going to be doing when he gets up there, he didn't pass a lot of things during his first 2 years because, first of all, one huge mistake that he made was to endorse Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House. We all knew he was a rhino. We all knew he was establishment, and he actually ended up endorsing him. And then he listened to absolutely everything that he told him to do. He got the tax cuts passed through the legislature. Through Congress and the Senate. However, his major promises, which was to complete the entire wall, to pass anti-illegal immigration laws, okay, and several other major promises, he never got it done because he allowed, all the establishment, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, all of them to sidetrack them because he didn't know what he was doing.
With all due
Clearly
respect,
he didn't know
Dr.
what he was
Maria,
doing.
he
First of all,
wasn't.
let me respond to that.
Right, one second,
He was.
one second again to make it up. Let Lisa respond because she mentioned Lisa. Go ahead, Lisa.
So
There's a glitch where I just mute you again. Just back on mute again.
okay, I was trying. It just wasn't letting. It was just like not letting me. Okay, so you guys forget that you're talking about things that need to be passed through Congress. Through Congress, he signs them. Yes, they're his initiatives. He lobbies for them and things like that. But this is through Congress, right? He had opposition from his own party all over the place. And you're right. I will give you this. He did not know what he was doing when he went in there because he's never been a politician. Anybody that goes to Congress, right? At any time, like when I went as an intern, I studied politics in an Ivy League school for 4 years, right? When I got there, I didn't know, and it wasn't even the same as what people taught you that it was, okay? You don't know how it works till you actually get in the ground and operate. He had people undermining and slow walking all of his policies. He would implement policies and he would have the bureaucrats in there not doing it, leaking stuff to the Times, causing problems left and right. And so if you think that it's going to be any better for DeSantis, who doesn't have an axe to grind, who wants to get reelected, right? Who's going to kiss everybody's ass so that he can be, Mr. whatever president, when he's not even liked by most of the people down there anyway, you're out of your mind. Like, I don't think Everybody's over here saying like, oh, they know how things work. You don't have any idea how it works. And you seem to conveniently forget how every single thing that he tried to do was undermined by his own people, the three-letter agencies, and unelected bureaucrats. It's absolutely ridiculous to me how selective of a memory most of you seem to have.
So what's different this time?
The bottom. Free 1 second.
And
Free,
by the way, the first 2 years,
how are you not going to get thwarted?
the first 2 years have nothing to do with COVID.
If they zoinked
all
him
your
last
issues are
time, how are they not
COVID,
going to?
we had the best economy in the beginning half. Then what are you still talking about the first 2 years for? What are you talking about?
Listen,
it's like you just want to chase your tail and not like the guy. You want to be never Trumpers, be never Trumpers, but just say so. Because you all sound like
I'm not a never Trumper, okay, Lisa? I'm not a never Trumper. I voted for Trump twice. Okay, I actually did a lot of things for Trump. So, don't call me a never Trumper. I helped him. I did caravans. I did so many things for Trump. Okay, so don't call me that. All right. I just look back at what, how Trump handled everything. I look at his style in leadership. Okay. And I don't want to have that for the next 4 years. I do not. Okay. I think that DeSantis has a better leadership style than Trump does. Okay, so I'm not a never Trumper. Okay, I don't hate the guy. I'm not going to say horrible things about him. I admit he did some good things. All right, but he didn't deliver on a lot of his really, really, really important promises. Now you are admitting to me by what you have just said that Trump doesn't have any leadership skills, because you're basically telling me that they let him drag him through the mud because he allowed all these people to just let him to, follow along and they did whatever they wanted. He had absolutely no control of his administration.
If you took a new job in a new field tomorrow, right, would you have full knowledge of how everything works and what to do and all that stuff when you got in there in 6 months? Honestly, would you? Like, let's be honest.
Burger King. This is
He's
Lisa.
let's look
now.
at
Man,
him
what are you talking about?
And DeSantis hasn't gotten anything done until the last 2 years
Lisa,
anyway.
let's look at him at the end of the term.
That is not true.
Guys.
Right. Once again, too many people are talking. Free. Go ahead and finish your point.
I mean, it's wild to hear these people say this. Like, this is Burger King or this is Best Buy. Like, oh man, he ain't know what to do. Like, that's not a flex. That's not like a positive thing that this man is inept at the job of being president of the United States. It's only one at what we're saying. Let me finish what I'm saying. It's only one at a time. All right. So we have somebody with executive experience, DeSantis, who knows how to move the levers of government, man. Like, I've watched this man's interviews, and he lays out specifically how he's going to accomplish certain things and how he's going to take on the bureaucratic state. I don't think I've ever heard Trump use the term bureaucratic state. The man is not intellectually curious. He doesn't know what he's doing. He got zoinked by like everybody in government. So you want us to give him another opportunity to get zoinked again? Like, this is not a learn on the job kind of thing. You had a shot. You had a shot.
He already learned.
Not only that, but I was with him.
I
was with him. Listen, Lisa, I was with him for 4 years, okay? And he was more concerned about what was going on in Ukraine and how he could get them to open up an investigation on Hunter and Joe Biden than he was concerned about dealing with Congress and ever. And that was necessary. That's why he never got anything passed. So obviously you don't know what you're talking about. He had more meetings in the White House and out of the White House about that constantly on a daily basis, calling to find out what was going on, how come they weren't doing it, sending Pence over there, sending other administrative people over there to push on Zelensky and other presidents in the Ukraine to get a false investigation opened up instead of dealing what was important at home.
When you call it a false investigation, you lose a lot of your credibility there, Lev, when you call it false investigation. And that's
no, I don't. No, following. Stop. If you were involved in the investigation, we could talk facts, because I was the one Trump sent there to do the investigation. And
I'm glad you're no longer in his
Heather,
circle.
shut up.
That gives me hope going into the
Heather, take a drink of the Kool-Aid and keep quiet and following.
I
Just
will.
like
The winning Kool-Aid.
Okay,
You're a bunch of
drink some more
losers, and guess
Kool-Aid.
what?
Okay, drink some
Your
more
day's
Kool-Aid.
gonna end. Your
Well, I
time's
mean,
gonna be up.
my time's not up. That's why just last week when you had Marjorie Green and all the rest of them talking about that they had this 1023 and that Biden was taking $5 million. You don't hear about that anymore. You know why, Fallon? Because I gave them the evidence about what Giuliani knew in 2019, that it was stated that there was no interaction between Zlochevsky and Biden, and there was no $5 million, and the person they were talking about was dead in 2011. That's why you don't even hear about that.
There's a video of Joe Biden
What
literally
video?
threatening to withhold $1 billion if they didn't
What are
fire
you
a
talking about, Heather?
prosecutor.
Watch the
pretending
whole
that video
video. I'm
doesn't
the one that
exist?
gave the video,
posted
Heather. Heather, take a deep breath, Heather. You don't know what you're talking
No, you guys
about.
are two-faced liars.
It's
and
not
I
two-faced.
honestly,
It's
I love
facts.
calling
It's
people like
facts.
you
It's
out.
facts, Heather. Facts.
All
You
right,
don't like to
let,
listen to
let,
facts.
Lev,
we've all seen
one
the
second.
video.
Let following finish his point. Following, go ahead.
Yeah, we've all seen the video. I don't know what you're talking about, Lev. You're trying to say that there's no 1023. You're saying that there hasn't been more and more evidence.
Where are they? But where are they following?
You say,
where are they?
well, you know,
It's
some exposure.
accusations, but there's nothing happening.
Okay, because Republicans first came into Congress. Now, if they didn't come into Congress, it never would have come out.
It's 3 years. 3 years they're in Congress, and they've been talking about this for.
I just said, how long have the Republicans been in power? How long have they been in power?
2 years.
In the House.
2 years.
No. They came in January. That's when they came into power. So it's like you have to just chill out here and recognize that they first came in and had a chance to actually engage as being the head of the oversight committee to actually start looking through the records that Democrats have wanted buried to remain buried forever. So I think it's a very disingenuous thing to say it's 2 years. Every one of us knows that these 1023s and the whistleblowers and Shapley coming out with the whole with what's happening with the IRS and the investigations into Hunter being settled. You're sitting here telling me that you actually believe that Hunter Biden
you're
had a
convoluting the two
legitimate
things.
job
You're
with
convoluting things. You're convoluting things. You're throwing a lot of shit at the wall. You're throwing a lot.
I'm not
Take
throwing anything at the wall.
You're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. Take one step at a time.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is,
tell me about the 1023. Tell me where's the facts about, the 1023. Where's the witnesses? Supposedly he died. Supposedly he ran away. Where are the tapes, the 17 tapes they were supposed to have? I have the facts. I have a tape recording between Zlochevsky and Giuliani where he tells him in black and white what Giuliani knew in 2019. Where's their facts? That's why Raskin put it up, and that's why he shut them up, and you don't hear about it anymore.
No, actually, Raskin actually, when he came out for his press conference, he was notorious for saying that for misleading the press in telling them that the FBI told them that the investigation had been shut down, when in fact everyone there said no. They said specifically the opposite, that it was still ongoing. At least at that point, we don't know what happened with respect to the deal that they cut with Hunter, where they're going to give him a little slap on the wrist so they can show some fake type of accountability.
That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about Hunter. We're talking about $5 million bribe that was supposed to the Giuliani, that they had a 1023, they had a witness, they had 17 tapes of Zlochevsky talking to Biden about a $5 million bribe that he took to fire.
That stuff all came out in the past 6 weeks.
No, that's not.
Hey, Lev, I just sent you the video of Joe Biden threatening to withhold $1 million if he didn't fire.
Watch the whole video. Yeah.
So why don't you go watch that?
I did watch it. I'm the one that brought it to.
And I just posted it to
my
my
God, you're such a liar.
wall for anybody
Okay,
to
I'm gonna.
Guys.
Suleiman,
Guys. Right. Okay, we are about to wrap up the space. I'm sure we're going to have many sequels to this because both sides are very passionate. But
can I end on one positive note for President Trump, Suleiman?
One second, Heather.
I just want to end on one positive.
Heather, please. So anyway, we are going to wrap up. But before Heather interrupted me, I was actually going to go to her because I'm going to give each side one person. Let's keep it short. I know it's very difficult for both sides because they love their monologues. Within a minute, wrap up concisely your point. Let's go for Free first for the DeSantis people, and then we'll go Heather for the Trump people, and then we'll end it. So Free.
Please let me say something, Simon.
Bro, no one cares what liberals got to say. No one cares what liberals got to say. Let's go to Free. Free, go for it. 1 minute.
Man, I saw Chris with his hand up, so I'm going to keep it really, really quick, and I'll give the rest of my...
No, it's either you or Chris,
Chris,
bro.
you want to do it, or you want me to do it, man? I don't want to step on your feet.
Man,
Bro,
I was
I
gonna
have a
say we
really
could go
good
back
point,
and forth, but
Suleiman.
man, Free, you've been great. Take it away, Free. And I want to say thank you, Suleiman, for hosting this space. Thank you all. Ron DeSantis saved my career, and that's why I've seen him be so successful down here. And Trump, he had his chance to come back. He had his chance to make amends for the shutdowns and everything. He's doubled down. He stands by his vaccine. That's no good for me. Free though, go ahead. Please give this to Free.
Man,
No, I think
at
you
the
just
end
took,
of the day,
you just
it's
took the
this.
minute,
And
bro. You just took
it,
it. Those games don't work on me, Chris.
all right,
Let
Heather,
me
we
say
do
it,
conversation,
Suleiman.
Heather,
man.
Let me
no,
I'll
say
no,
take the
it.
no.
remainder of the
Wait.
time. Yeah.
Chris is like,
Heather's
Chris
talked
is
way
like,
more than
oh,
anybody.
free,
Let Free go.
Chris,
All right,
Let
so
Free
listen,
go,
listen. At the end
please.
of the day, is this.
Chris,
At the
Chris,
end of the
Chris,
day, it's
Chris.
this. We have
I was
one
literally
person.
like, bro, who do you want to give the minute to? And then you took a minute to give your own wrap up.
You know,
Heather,
I'll
All right,
I'll
man,
let
I'll let you
Free
give
go.
go
your
first.
last
No,
minute.
Free, the mic is all yours.
All right, listen,
Go
man.
ahead.
End of the
Go
day,
ahead, Chris.
Trump had his opportunity in office, right? And I'm a results based kind of guy. At the end of the day, did he do well with COVID? Absolutely not. Did he win re-election? Absolutely not. How do we do in the elections that have come since then? Pretty terrible. He's supposed to be the leader of the party. Well, you know what? The buck stops with him. The responsibility is with him. He has screwed this up left and right. I'm not discounting the fact that early in his presidency, he had some good numbers. But at the end of the day, if you're up by 14 before the half, and then you lose the game by 21 points, I don't care that you were up by 14. He's fumbled the ball, he's lost the game, and it's time to put in a new, fresh quarterback. That would be DeSantis. Why? Why? I'm gonna keep going with the sports analogy. Why? If you have an old, busted down, beat up quarterback, the other team knows how to get to him, and he continues to fumble the ball and throw interceptions. Why would you continue to put him in the game? Would that make sense? No, I don't think so. DeSantis is the man to take this country forward, to take the party forward. And I get that there are a lot of emotions on the MAGA side because a lot of you guys have built your whole entire identity around an 80-year-old man. I get that. But it's time to let it go. It's time to let it go. It's time to move forward. And I'll land my plane there.
Thanks. All right, I'm gonna go to Heather. Heather,
Yeah.
before I do, Joe has been sending me loads of DMs begging for his 30 seconds. So go ahead, Joe. Wrap
Yeah,
it up. Let's see
wait,
what
wait.
let's see what
mine's
the
really
liberals are
quick.
gonna say. Guys,
Mine is really
whoever the
quick.
liberal attacks, that's who you should vote for. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, mine's really quick. They say Trump didn't know what he was doing, but then they also say that he was responsible for the best economy we've ever had. This is why they talk Trump. People who vote for Trump talk out both sides of their mouth and don't realize that they contradict each other with what they're saying, and they'll say anything to defend this man because they're in love with him. Because it doesn't make sense. Either he knew what he was doing and created the best economy, or he didn't know what he was doing and the economy was good because of what Obama did prior to Trump taking office. It's one or the other. It can't be both at the same
Okay.
time.
Thanks, Joe. And let me go to Heather. Heather, it seems like the liberals are more afraid of Trump. What do you think? Go ahead, do your wrap up.
Well, I mean, I can understand why, right? To Free's point, we want to talk about football. I've been saying for a long time, being from New England, that President Trump is like the Tom Brady of politics, right? He's the greatest of all time. And Ron DeSantis is just some young, semi-good quarterback that had a good season. But at the end of the day, he's no Tom Brady. He's no Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I love him for a number of reasons, right? I'll give you one, because I'm a constitutionalist and the Second Amendment is of importance to me. When all this COVID stuff started happening and you had these liberal states like California and New York that were emptying their prisons in the name of COVID, I remember going around doing stories about how a man in New York that murdered a woman on camera was let out while waiting for his trial because of COVID, because they didn't want to put them in cells and spread the virus and blah, 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 blah. Donald Trump made the decision when New Jersey, New York, and all these liberal states were closing gun stores and ammo stores. He declared them essential. And Governor Murphy is one governor of many that reversed course and opened them so that while they were emptying these prisons into our streets, while the country was facing all this uncertainty, Donald Trump protected our Second Amendment right and declared our firearm industry essential, which it is. It's our Second Amendment. We have that right. And then the other thing I'll say is, being from a military family, my family fought in several wars. My dad was deployed over 20 times. My brother, Iraq, Afghanistan, they fought. And this country means something to me. So I don't care who you are, when you get on these Twitter spaces and you're bold-faced lying about people that did what was best for our military men and women and kept us out of wars for 4 years, like Donald Trump did when he brokered peace treaties like the Abraham Accords, when he kept people like Putin in his lane and out of Ukraine. All right, I take that personally. So you know what? To
He
hell
let
with
him
all
in
you
Ukraine,
DeSantis,
Heather.
Guys,
you
guys,
guys
let
are
Heather,
losers, and Trump is gonna win in 2024. The
appreciate it,
end.
Heather. Thank you. Sarah, we're gonna wrap up. You're a liberal. No one cares about your opinion, but what's your final thoughts?
I care about you, Sarah. Come on, talk. Let Sarah talk.
Hey, Sarah, go ahead. We'd like to hear your thoughts on this discussion.
Slayman, she's gone.
All right. Okay, she's gone. Okay, then, guys,
She
thanks
couldn't
for
take all the
joining. Much
interrupting anymore.
appreciated.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.